Act, please.
Adequate notice of this meeting has been provided by posting the same on the bulletin board of Town Hall and forwarding a copy to the Courier News Star Ledger at least 48 hours prior to the meetings, all in accordance with the Open Public Meetings Act. This meeting was contained on a list of meetings set by resolution dated January 2nd, 2020. This meeting will not substantially go past 10:30.
Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Mrs. Brahiman?
She's muted.
Mr. Kudo?
Yes, here.
Mrs. Kingsley?
Here.
Mr. Maderos?
He's also on mute.
You're muted, Alvaro.
Yeah. Mrs. Pogue? Well,
Here.
Mr. Yellen?
Here.
Mayor Devani?
I'm here. Please all stand for the flag salute. See it? Nope. I pledge allegiance
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands,
One
nation,
Nation under God,
indivisible, with liberty
liberty,
and
and
justice.
justice for all.
Very good. My chair is high. Okay, so tonight we have two proclamations. I'm going to read them both. Starting with Juneteenth. Whereas Juneteenth, also known as Emancipation Day, is a day of observance that marks the true end of slavery in the United States of America. It is named such because news of the signing of the Emancipation Proclamation by President Lincoln did not reach slaves in Galveston, Texas until 2.5 years later, on June 19, 1865. It is named such because early citizens simply combined the words June and 19th to make it Juneteenth. And whereas Juneteenth is also referred to as an African American Independence Day by many because it symbolizes for African Americans what July 4th symbolizes for Americans in general, freedom. Juneteenth is a historic milestone which reminds us of the triumph of the human spirit over the cruelty of slavery. It honors those who survived the inhumane institution of bondage and demonstrates pride in the marvelous legacy of resistance and perseverance they left us. And whereas Emancipation Day observations are held on different days and are celebrated in 41 states, including New Jersey, it is imperative that this piece of Black history never be omitted from American history. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the Mayor and the Township Council, the Township of Berkeley Heights do proclaim June 19th, 2020 as Juneteenth in the Township of Berkeley Heights and encourage all citizens to recognize its value and significance as an integral piece of American fabric, even despite my typo because Barbara was not in the office and I had to type my own proclamation. And also, I want to read a proclamation in honor of Pride Month. Whereas the Township of Berkeley Heights wishes to recognize the month of June 2020 as lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, and queer LGBTQ Pride Month in the Township. And whereas while society at large increasingly supports LGBTQ equality, it is essential to acknowledge that increased awareness, advocacy, and action remains vital to the end discrimination and prejudice and advance national civil rights protections for LGBTQ individuals. And whereas all human beings are born free and equal in dignity and rights, and whereas the Township of Berkeley Heights observes Pride Month to honor the history of the LGBTQ liberation movement and to support the rights of all citizens to experience equality and freedom from discrimination. And whereas proclaiming Pride Month influences awareness and provides support and advocacy for Union County's LGBTQ community and is an opportunity to take action and engage in dialogue to strengthen alliances, build acceptance, and advance equal rights. And whereas for Pride Month 2020, the Township of Berkeley Heights invite residents in our communities to take pause and recognize the milestones achieved in the LGBTQ rights and equality movement were made possible by Black and brown trans women, including Union County's own Marsha P. Johnson, who led the Stonewall Uprising, fighting back against decades of oppression and injustice. This Pride Month, it is more important than ever to remember our history and to honor those who have fought for equality, and justice. Whereas the nation was founded on the principle that every individual has infinite dignity and worth, and the Township of Berkeley Heights of the County of Union calls upon the people of this country to embrace the principle and work to eliminate prejudice everywhere it exists. And whereas the rainbow flag is widely recognized as a symbol of pride, inclusion, and support for social movements that advocate for LGBTQ people in society, and therefore be it resolved by the Township of Berkeley Heights of the County of Union hereby proclaims June 2020 as Pride Month, recognizing all LGBTQ residents whose influential and lasting contributions to our neighborhoods make Berkeley Heights a vibrant community to live in and to work in. Okay, with that, we do not have any items for a conference session, so we'll go right into the regular agenda with our Township Council reports, starting with Gentiana.
Hi, everybody. Just a couple of things. Going over the communication committee. The communication committee has sent out an elections update email blast to help the residents with a new vote by mail guidance as per Township Clerk's office. Just want to make sure that the primaries are by vote by mail only, and they're on July 7. And so please make sure to fill out your ballot and make sure to circle, for the candidate of your choice, and send your ballot out, before it's too late. Also, there is some talk at the communication committee about doing some TikTok for fun, so stay tuned for that. Another, I wanted to also address, please support your local businesses. I personally have been to lunch to a lot of restaurants in town, and I'm happy that they have all this outdoor seating. So I'm hoping that everybody else is going to join me in supporting all of them, since I've lost so many months of business. I also wanted to add that I received a letter from a resident to my township email, and I'm concerned about, and it mentioned an inappropriate behavior by a town employee and a council member. So I'm concerned about this. So what I'm going to do, this happened to one of our local establishments. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to forward that to Greg for further investigation. So Greg, you're going to be getting that, back from me later on this evening. And other than that, I have nothing else. Thank you.
Manny?
Is it working? There we go. I keep on turning it. I muted at this side. Just real short, two things. I'm glad the restaurants are open. I'm glad the outdoor seating's working. I spoke to a bunch of residents and restaurant people, and they seem pretty happy so far. A lot of them have tents up. You've seen me photobomb a few places. I've missed Angie at a few places also. We miss each other. Sooner or later, we'll catch more people outside. But it's looking good. Follow safe distancing. I was called out for not wearing my mask correctly. I've replaced my mask, and I fully intend on doing the right thing. Second thing is the library is accepting drop-off books. So all those books that are sitting on your shelf that might be decades old and you haven't returned them, time to bring them back to the library. Stephanie said in July, I'm going to swing that and say, Stephanie says she will go to your house and pick them up if you don't have them, but that's not true. And that's about it. So thank you very much. Oh, neighbors helping neighbors. I was told that my needs are no longer needed. So I guess this system actually did do a great job. I know it did. Susan Polk's daughter worked really, really hard, and a few other people that were there. And John Leo and Margaret and Janice and everybody else was helping out. I was honored to be part of that and helping out for the short time I was there. And hopefully we never see something like that needed ever again. Thank you.
Thank you, Manny. Dean?
Okay, couple things. One, I'm really excited to announce that Hughes, Thomas B. Hughes, Mountain Park, Woodruff, and Columbia all received gold certification through the Safe Routes to School recognition program. In addition, we had Mary Kay McMillan receive their first step certification, which it goes first steps, bronze, silver, gold. So we are on our way. It's a major, major milestone for this community. And I want to thank the PTOs and especially the Safe Routes to School Committee and the school administration for their dedication and teamwork. This year to get gold, they had to put together a school travel plan. It's a detailed plan. It required a lot of work, and it really was a great partnership with the schools and the township. After we got that certification, I confirmed with Trans Options that there will be a Safe Routes to School grant cycle this year. It's delayed, but they expect it to be announced in September, October. And now that we have gold certification, this puts us in a really good position to potentially win a large grant. And speaking of grants, the Safe Streets to Transit grant is due July 1st. I've been working with the police department and the engineer on it, and all of these new gold certifications will also get added into that grant and should strengthen it. So we are looking to, as you see in the resolution tonight, get the rest of the funding for the sidewalk initiatives on Plainfield Avenue. And given what's happening with Little Flower and all of this, I think we should be in a good place to hopefully win another grant there. I want to congratulate all of our GL graduates. Wish them luck in the next phase of their lives. I mean, we know these have been challenging times for everybody, but especially for high school seniors. So I would encourage everybody to walk downtown along Springfield Avenue and Snyder Avenue and Park Avenue and take a great look at our class of 2020. The banners are beautiful. And lastly, before I end my report, I just want to say a few words about a resolution tonight that we have on the agenda regarding the creation of an advisory committee related to racial equality. Given the national conversation we are having right now as a country, there's no doubt in my mind that this is the right time for us to be reflecting locally and formally on these issues, including educating ourselves as a community. I believe the proposed advisory committee provides a structure that will facilitate bringing together all of the major stakeholders in our community to have what I hope can be an open and honest dialogue with one another. And working together can help us build consensus around real and actual initiatives and not just words for a better and inclusive community. I especially hope it will provide an elevated opportunity for us to listen carefully to our existing Berkeley Heights Diversity Council representatives who have done such a great job laying some of the groundwork that we need to affect positive change in our community. So whether it be tonight or at our next meeting, because I'm hearing there's potentially some changes, I hope we can collectively reach consensus on a committee that will ultimately create a community-wide, inspired and engaged action plan for a much more inclusive Berkeley Heights. Thank you.
Thank you, Jane. Alvaro?
Well said, Jane. I just have about 4 things here. So the Berkeley Heights Environmental Commission is working on their annual submission of initiatives to Sustainable Jersey for certification. So I will be reaching out to a number of folks in my efforts to help the Environmental Commission achieve that their target dates. The Recycling Task Force was focused on their initiatives that are related to that. I want to thank Manny for his thoughtful and creative help on that last week. The recycling bid is due on July 22nd. This is the first bid for recycling for 2021. I joined the mayor as a guest of the Senior Advisory Board meeting. It's our first meeting since the COVID crisis pandemic hit, and I think it was very helpful in reassuring seniors who felt out of touch with the township, and we did discuss that in detail. I also joined the mayor for a meeting of the Economic Development Committee, at which we considered a recommendation from a resident member to leverage the COVID-driven interest in existing cities to exit the city, or I should say, in the exiting cities to open up that is reflected in interest in suburban lifestyles. And so it gives us an opportunity to market Berkeley Heights. There's a meeting actually especially set up to address that this coming Thursday. Lastly, I toured the municipal building. It's coming along very well, and I recommend it to my fellow councilmen that you should all do the same. I think you'll appreciate it. And that's all. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Alvaro. Susan?
Thank you, Mayor. So I attended the Berkeley Heights Diversity Council listening session, and while Zoom, as we all know, is not the best format for these events, we should be thankful we do have a method in which to connect. It was great to see stakeholders from all over our township that are ready to continue the movement of social change. I attended an event at the Liberty Hall Museum with Margaret Illis from the Historical Preservation Committee. It was called Uncorked, the Roaring 20s. Our goal in attending that event was to see how we could also have a fundraiser for the Littell Lord property. And we got some ideas. We saw some things we liked, some things that we would do differently, but we realized that we can do a fun event that's both educational and reasonable to put together. Grants. There's a meeting this next, I guess, whenever July 2nd is. School's out in a week, not even a week, and I'm lost the date. So July 2nd is the next grants committee. I did get a letter from the New Jersey Historic Trust that they received our grant application and all the necessary components were in place. The grants can get very complicated, as Jean probably knows, with different components. So I was happy to hear that. They'll be contacting Liza and me to set up a time in July to go over to the property and take a look at it personally. The LEAP grant is due next week. With regard to planning board, the meeting was canceled on June 17th. The regular meeting is July 15th, but there's a special meeting scheduled for July 9th. Some exciting news. A bakery is coming before the board, so stay posted. And I will be touring the building, the municipal complex, early next week. I had an appointment and it had to get canceled because someone more important, not really more important, but more crucial to the project came up. So I gave up my time. And that's all I have, Mayor.
Okay, thank you, Susan. Stephen?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. Let me begin with the other half of the Communications Committee report. Yes, I'm sorry. So our town newsletter went out this week. We've been publishing twice a month. As always, I want to thank Carolyn Miotis for doing a wonderful job in compiling that information and sending it out as part of the committee. The committee has done some work on Instagram, doing some photo trivia of where in Berkeley Heights is this photo located. We started with some pretty easy ones. We're going to look to expand that and get more residents involved. If people have photographs of places they want to be a part of the contest, please reach out to us. We're happy to include that. In addition, we had the committee summarize the recent Berkeley Heights reopening efforts, which includes an update to the local restaurant directory and had a handy list of the new outdoor dining options in town. So a lot of good stuff going on with the Communications Committee. I also toured the municipal complex. I did so on Saturday. It was very informational. I am very pleased with what I learned and looking forward to seeing the project go on. I also attended the Diversity Council listening session along with Councilman Pogue and I believe Councilman Kudo as well, I think. Manny, correct me if I'm wrong? I was not, okay. And I share Susan's sentiments on the views on the situation, exactly. On the Veterans Memorial Committee front, I want to congratulate our new member, Manny Alexandre. Manny, for those who were at the protest in March, was one of the many inspirational speakers who were there. He is also a National Guard veteran who served our country in uniform in Iraq during the Iraq War. So he is now serving our community as he once served our country. So I want to formally welcome Manny on behalf of the committee to the committee. I also want to say a quick note about Neighbors Helping Neighbors. As Manny said, we've been winding the program down. It's been an inspiration for me as part of that group to see all the incredible hard work, the efforts, the support of residents across this community to helping others in need. I just want to give a quick shout out to some of the other volunteers, people like Karen and John and Erin, Amalia, Alex, Susan's daughter, and of course many, many others who don't immediately come to mind, but all who have helped make this effort successful, from all the masks that we sewed, to all the food we dropped off, or the people who were able to answer the phone when senior citizens called looking for help or just someone to listen to. I think it really showed Berkeley Heights at its very best. And I'm proud of the role that we've all done to help make that happen. So that concludes my report, Madam Mayor.
Great, thank you, Stephen. And thank you mentioning Manny Alexandre. I was very excited when he agreed to come on board with that committee. On to administration reports, Mayor's report. Good evening, everyone. Happy summer and belated Father's Day to Manny and Alvaro and all the fathers in town. It's been a busy few weeks since our council last met. Opening the town back up has been at a frenetic pace. One we don't mind because we love seeing this continued growth. With the stay-at-home order lifted, we were able to provide permitting for almost a dozen of our restaurants for outdoor dining. Now we're assisting our restaurants to achieve the indoor dining at the 25% capacity now allowed. We've also been hard at work assisting our community pools like the Berkeley Swim Club, the YMCA, and Lifetime Fitness to open up and comply with state protocols. Likewise, we delved into the guidance on camps for children, and while it might not be a typical summer for our younger residents, we are working hard to ensure that they are provided with a recreational experience that is safe for all. Personal care businesses opened yesterday with nail salons, hair salons, waxing centers, and massage centers. Have done an outstanding job of implementing the health standards that will make our residents feel safe and a little bit of normalcy also. Likewise, organized sport practices started yesterday, and the Board of Education in the Township opened fields last week, and the county opened parks and fields yesterday. I know that there's an excited middle school contingency, eager to hear that malls will open up on Monday the 29th. I know I have one at my house. The township continues negotiations with the municipal complex developer Epic. I had the pleasure of walking through the building with Epic owner John Epifano yesterday to press upon him the importance of finalizing the negotiations and hopefully amending the redevelopment agreement and opening up this gem to our community when it is safe to do so. As Alvaro mentioned, the Senior Advisory Board met for the first time in several months. It was very good to hear from our seniors and return to the important issues facing these residents, particularly in light of the global pandemic, and getting information to them is very important. Likewise, we had a regular meeting of the Economic Development Committee, which generated some great ideas that Alvaro shared already. And finally, I'm very pleased to present on the agenda tonight, even though we probably need to read the resolution. We have some few changes and some omissions. The Truth, Racial Healing, and Transformation Committee. This group will help the township have meaningful discussions about topics that may have been uncomfortable or difficult to discuss, so we can take definitive action at the local government, Board of Education, and community levels. We have a lot of work to do, but with the stakeholders of this town working alongside our residents in a collaborative fashion with our Diversity Council, I know that we will emerge better and stronger for it. And happy graduation to those 5th graders, middle schoolers, high schoolers, and college seniors. I know it wasn't the celebration you had hoped for, but your community is very, very proud of you all. And with that, that concludes my report, administrator's report. Liza?
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to mention that this is up on the township website, but Moody's, big news for us in the past week has been on the finance front. Moody's Investor Service announced an MIG 1 rating to the township, which is the highest rating it gives to gauge the risk of municipal bonds and the credit worthiness of the issuer, essentially. It provides more opportunities for finance in the municipal bond market. And it affirmed our AA1 GALT rating, which is one step below AAA. And this is what investors look at as a rating for their risk and investment. So this means that we should be able to attract good banks and investors bidding on the bands, hopefully at good rates with good premiums. They were really impressed with the moves that Berkeley Heights has made, especially given the pandemic. We are faring much better than a lot of other municipalities in terms of our tax collection rate, which I think is almost at 98%. Thank you, everyone who's been paying. I know Councilwoman Kingsley has thanked everyone before, but it creeps up a little bit every day. That is phenomenal given the stories that are happening in other towns. So that, along with all the redevelopment continuing and other businesses like bakeries and other smaller businesses and mixed use developments still wanting to come into Berkeley Heights, that was really impressive to Moody's. So congratulations to everyone for that. Berkeley Heights held 2 note sales today. Morgan Stanley won both sales. We had 6 bidders on the first note and 4 bidders on the second. More great financial news for Berkeley Heights. The interest we got on the notes were 0.382%, that less than 1% on the first, and 0.446% on the second. The premium from these sales will go directly to the reserve for payment of debt service on the municipal complex. So that's great. Also in that news, we got the second amount of money from Toll Brothers, roughly $65,000 this week per their redevelopment agreement that will also go toward paying off the municipal complex debt. 2 grant applications on the agenda tonight. One is from Municipal Aid Department of Transportation. That's to pave Sawmill Drive West, College Ave, and Reisman, which are all in the same neighborhood to finish off that section of town. And then the others, the other Councilman Kingsley mentioned, this is to do phase 2 of the work we submitted for and received a grant award for the Safe Routes to Transit grant. Also, our engineering surveyors have been in town for about 2 weeks during surveys for phase 1 of that grant, because we need to start the design aspect component of that grant on Plainfield Avenue. So if you see people with those guys with those tripod things on there, that's what they're doing. Drainage study, we have a draft report for the west side drainage study up near Orchard, Mercier, that area. We will, on the draft report, we'll meet with the engineer and the hydraulics team next week to go through the data and discuss next steps. DPW has been repairing storm basins, water the plants on Springfield Ave, prep Snyder Field for use, maintain all other fields. Also prepping Lower Columbia for our summer experience. We're not calling it the regular playground camp this year. Install the GL banners of the Board of Ed and use 1.61 tons of asphalt in the past 2 weeks to fill potholes. Redevelopment is continuing. Also on the agenda tonight is the treatment works approval application to the DEP for Toll Brothers. So hopefully that won't take too long to get through, but per COVID, that agency does get, I think it's another 90 days leeway for their approvals. Municipal complex daily oversight and maintenance of this project continues, working with the developer, project manager, architect, IT, AV vendors, our own IT and AV staff, etc. Shared services group that we have met earlier this month. We're recirculating a 2011 shared service agreement that involves equipment sharing between the Chathams, New Providence, Summit, and Milburn. We're re-examining that and updating it, and all our member towns are going to be discussing with their DPWs, fire departments, sewer departments, etc., and what equipment they could use or what equipment they could afford to share with neighboring towns to help offset some of their costs. And then reopening, I'm not going to repeat what the mayor said. The reopening has been busy. I know I spend most of my weekends the past few weeks frantically trying to get restaurants their permits and make sure their exterior perimeters around the tables are secure, working with the PD. You know, the PD's really been bending over backwards to do this because we want our businesses to be open, so thank you. Fields are open now. More things are open outside. I cannot emphasize enough, if you listen to the news, all the states that are reopening, numbers are spiking. Primarily, these numbers are happening in young people. Young parents, please, please, please tell your kids they need to maintain distance. They should not be doing contact sports. If it's impossible to maintain that 6-foot distance, they need to wear masks. This is a population who just thinks they're invulnerable, and they're not. These are the people who are getting sick now. So please do your best to educate them and make sure that they're doing their part. And otherwise, the paper newsletters, we are now putting paper versions of the newsletters that Stephen said the communications committee is putting out in a bin outside of Town Hall at the Park Avenue entrance. I know a lot of seniors do not have internet access, and we used to drop off copies at their senior meetings every month. They're not getting that anymore. So we're going to try to get the word out to them that there are paper copies right outside in the bin. Please come and take a copy. And that's all. Thank you.
Okay.
Mayor, can I interrupt for just a second? There was something I forgot to mention.
Sure.
There is a woman, Deborah Huggins, and she reached out and she said their youth mission group is considering summer 2020 projects. They're seeking local families to help. Their hands-on youth mission group has a few slots available to perform home maintenance and repairs. Labor and materials are covered. They just need local residents that are in need of painting, grounds cleanup, or simple building projects. So I was wondering maybe Liza could post this on our website. And if you know one of your neighbors who has a project that would fit that criteria, you can reach out to Deborah Huggins at Central Presbyterian Church. And I can, Liza, is there a way we can post her email or this flyer somewhere?
Liza, you're on mute.
Sorry. Yes, if you send it to me, we can work with the communications committee to get it out.
Yeah, it was on my second page. I forgot to mention it. Thank you so much.
I was also going to send that to the senior advisory board as well. Deborah had reached out to me, and I think Stephen as well, and a few others.
Oh,
so.
great. Yeah, I mean, it's a great way to get something done, and it helps everybody. It helps the kids learn how to do something, and the seniors get what they need.
Absolutely.
Or local families, yeah. Thank you.
Thank you for that. All right.
Okay, I move that all Township Council reports be accepted and approved.
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call.
Mrs. Brahimai?
Yes.
Mr. Kudo?
Yes.
Mrs. Kingsley?
Yes.
Mr. Maderos?
Yes.
Mrs. Pogue?
Yes.
Mr. Yellen?
Yes.
Okay, on to the adoption of the 2020 municipal budget. Anna and Eugenia and I practiced this, so hopefully this will go well. We'll see. All right, this is the time for the public hearing on the 2020 municipal budget. The budget was approved by the Mayor and Council on May 26, 2020, was advertised in full as required by law on May 30th, 2020, together with notice of hearing for this time. Printed copies have been made available to the public during the past week, and a supply is here, not here, but I suppose it's probably online for anyone who needs it. Anyone who has not secured a copy of the budget, I'm assuming it is posted online, Liza? Okay,
Yes,
great.
yes.
Okay. I do have the resolution regarding the reading of the budget by title only, and I offer the following to move an adoption. So I'm going to read that right now. Township of Berkeley Heights resolution to read budget by title. Whereas NJSA 40A:4-8 as amended provides that the budget as advertised shall be read in full at the public hearing, or that it may be read by its title only if, one, at least 1 week prior to the date of the hearing and at the hearing, a complete copy of the approved budget, A, shall be made available for public inspection, and B, shall be made available to each person upon request. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the Mayor and Council of the Township of Berkeley Heights that it is hereby declared that the conditions of NJSA 40A:4-8 as amended set forth in the subsections 1A and 1B have been met, and therefore the budget for 2020 shall be read by title only. I need a second.
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call.
Mrs. Brahimai?
Yes.
Mr. Kudo?
Yes.
Mrs. Kingsley?
Yes.
Mr. Maderos?
Yes.
Mrs. Pogue?
Yes.
Mr. Yellen?
Yes.
Okay, the resolution is now adopted. Before opening the hearing, I will outline the procedure. Bear with me because I have to adopt this for Zoom purposes. Each person desiring to be heard via audio will put their name in the chat box to Liza before speaking. Liza will then let me know who is asking to speak in order, and as we go through, they will be, I guess, put back on mute, as is per our regular instructions. And we'll do our best to answer any questions that anybody may have. So may I have a motion to open up the public hearing on the budget?
I move to open the public hearing on the budget.
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mrs. Brahimai?
Yes.
Mr. Kudo?
Yes.
Mrs. Kingsley?
Yes.
Mr. Maderos?
Yes.
Mrs. Pogue?
Yes.
Mr. Yellen?
Yes.
The public hearing on the budget is now open.
Also just want to mention, people can do the raise your hand feature on the participants icon if you would prefer that than putting it in the chat. Okay. First one we have is Carol Matula, 5 Hastings. Okay.
Okay.
Ms.
Okay, am I on now?
Yep, go ahead.
Okay, I'm just curious to know, have any police services, manpower, or equipment been reduced this fiscal year compared to last fiscal year?
You have to ask everything at one time.
Yes, can you?
You want me to answer that?
Yes, please.
Let's do our normal procedure because it's very hard on Zoom not to write all the questions down and then go down the list and answer them.
Okay, that was my only question.
Oh, okay. So question is, have any police services been reduced in this budget? So you
Services, manpower, or equipment, right?
Right. Eugenia, go ahead.
Yes, we went into the chair to say that the mayor and council approved a shared service agreement with the Union County for police dispatch 911. And that's basically to reduce some of the costs in the manpower, the equipment that might be needed because of dispatching and all of that. So that has reduced, and it will continue reducing the long run.
That just reduces our cost.
Yes.
We also eliminated the police car, which normally they try to do 1 or 2 every year because the fleet is aging, but that is one of the things that after COVID, we cut out.
And also in the capital budget, the police had quite a few reductions in some of the equipment because of COVID.
Radios. Okay.
Next one.
All right, we have John Sigaglia, 22 Robbins. Okay, I'm unmuting you, John. Okay, go ahead, John.
Okay, am I on?
Yes.
Okay. I had spent quite a bit of time early on, actually it seems like 2 months ago now, looking at the budget. I had a lot of concerns initially. And I know that Jean and I had probably an hour phone call going over stuff. And basically, there were a lot of numbers that didn't look right to me, but I got answers, and I got the answers that I needed. I thought that we could go further, but on hearing things, from Gene, and I know that was in discussion with the other people as well, that you got to the point, the best you could do. What people have to understand that most of any budget of a municipality, school board ever is personnel. And the personnel we have, I think we need. I think we need the DPW people we have. I think we need the police we have and so forth. The other thing I want to point out is that I've heard criticisms about the budget that we could go further, okay? But they're general. I have not heard from anyone as to a specific thing that should be eliminated from the budget that we don't need, that could save us money. And money that would be significant, not that it's going to mean 25 or 50 cents difference in my taxes. So I think you've done a good job. I appreciate the answers. It would have been helpful, I think, early on if there was a little bit more transparency about the information. But again, because I had the opportunity to have that conversation with Gene, it answered my questions. So, I think you've done as best job as you could considering the circumstances. And I appreciate the job that was done by the whole council. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Appreciate that. Next question.
I don't see any more. Let me check just to be sure. No more.
Okay. Can I have a motion to close the public hearing on the budget?
I move to close the hearing on the budget.
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call?
Mrs. Brahimai,
Yes.
Jacudo,
Yes.
Mrs. Kingsley,
Yes.
Mr. Maderos,
Yes.
Mrs. Pogue,
Yes.
Mr. Yellen.
Yes.
I will now read section 2, the adopting resolution for the 2020 budget. This is page 41 and 42 of the budget if anyone is trying to follow along. Section 2, upon adoption for year 2020 resolution, be it resolved by the council members of the Township of Berkeley Heights, County of Union, that the budget herein before set forth is hereby adopted and shall constitute an appropriation for the purposes slated of the sums therein set forth as appropriations, and authorization of the amount of $13,752,255.39 for municipal purposes. And then skipping down to E, $1,157,587.86 for the minimum library tax. May I have a motion to adopt the resolution?
So
I
moved.
move we adopt the resolution for the budget.
Second.
Any discussion?
Can I just ask a question? I know that we've been working on a PowerPoint presentation to take the public through the budget. Are we going to do that before we vote on the budget?
At what point did you plan on presenting that?
Yeah. I think it's and Eugenia and Eliza present. I'm just questioning the process of this all because it seems like if we vote on the budget and then give the presentation, it seems out of order.
This is the adoption of the resolution to read it, right? And then we have the presentation and then adoption.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, so there's another procedural step first before we would actually be approving the budget.
Okay.
Wait. I think this is the final step.
It is.
No, this is the final step. I said we need to go through the PowerPoint and then
If you want to do the presentation, let's do it now and then we'll vote on the budget adoption.
Yes. I think that makes more sense.
Yep.
Thank you, Anna.
Okay, so if everybody, for the public, I put the link to the presentation in the chat box. If I'm going to share my screen too, but if you want to see it, up close and personal.
But you're going to share your screen, right?
Yes.
Yeah, that'll be helpful, Liza.
Yep.
Now I know what I look like when I'm with the kids. Like, I'm going to share my screen now.
Okay, can everybody see that?
Yep. Can you put it in a slideshow?
At the top.
Well, keep going.
To the center.
It's in the middle there.
Oh, slideshow, the middle box, yeah.
I use Google Slides.
Now come out of that box, go in the orange area.
The orange area, you have insert design.
See the slideshow in the middle of your orange box there? Yeah, there you go.
Okay.
Is this working? This what you want?
Yeah, we can see.
I guess we can work with it. We can live with it.
You can work with that? Okay. Okay, I have like 2 different devices. Eugenia, do you want to start?
This is the 2020 municipal budget presentation. The mayor and council has been trying through all of this time. We started back in September with the budget. We were ready to introduce the budget in March, and then we have the pandemic coming through. Mayor and council since then has been working very hard and trying to make adjustment to estimate and to provide the town with the best budget possible and having the least impact to their residents as far as taxes. And looking at the revenue, also estimating what revenues we might not be getting, and also trying to cut some appropriations without and keeping the same level of service that they, the town is accustomed to. You want to go to number 2, Liza?
Sure. Yes. We did want to say we had this budget ready in March, and then COVID hit, and then we analyzed everything to scale down costs we didn't absolutely need to incur. At the same time, realized that our sewer department needed some much needed TLC in terms of infrastructure. So we also needed to put some money toward that. So through some processes and moving things around and sort of readjusting priorities that we're going to take you through in this slideshow, we're still able to do all that, but still keeping a 0% municipal tax. We just want to say, when we say 0%, everybody needs to remember that there are there's the municipal portion of your tax bill, and then there's the county portion, and then there's the Board of Ed portion. So we are just talking about the municipal portion. Whoever is McGI iPhone, you can mute yourself. I'm not. Do it first. Okay, there we go. Okay. So also we delayed the introduction of the budget a little bit so we could incorporate some new sources of revenue after COVID hit, such as the Connell liquor license extension. The ability for us to take in that money as revenue this year gave us the ability to then offset any other increases there may have been to keep that at a 0% increase. So now we're going to go to slide 3. Eugenia.
And this is basically the comparison of the estimated tax impact, comparison. We have the 2019, what we adopted the budget with, and the comparison of 2020. The municipal tax levy, which is the amount to be raised for municipal purposes only, which is what we control. It went up 46,867.89. That's 0.34%. However, the value of the town, the net assessed value of the whole town, it went up by 6,636,102. So you basically take the municipal tax levy and then you divide into the net valuation of the town, and that comes up with a percentage that is minus 0 to 1%. So I'm sorry?
Go ahead, sorry.
Okay, and the municipal tax bill on the average keep in mind that in this budget, there are 2 components. We have the municipal tax that we control over in the budget, but also we have the library tax that is given to us. So, but overall, the whole thing makes up the municipal portion of the tax bill, which is the budget itself, basically is going to go up by 0.097% and $2.47 per year for the average home in Berkeley Heights.
Right, so if you can see from where my arrow is right above the green arrow, that net valuation of the township that Eugenia was mentioning, our net valuation, which is essentially what our town is valued at, went up by more than $6.6 million since 2019. And that's mainly because of new construction, additions, and other activities that bring our assessed value higher. So we're gonna go to slide 4 now. And this shows how your tax money is essentially distributed between what we mentioned, between school, county, township, and library. Eugenia, did you need to explain anything else here? This sort of recaps what you were just talking about, how the library levy went up 10,000 this year.
Yes, these are estimated numbers, but basically numbers that we have received. They already, I believe the school already adopted their budget, and the county also already adopted their budget. So those are real numbers that will come through, that will be part of the tax levy of the tax bill later on when we submit our budget.
And this is essentially just a graphic illustration of the slide before you, just a pie graph to illustrate how much of that tax levy makes up school, county, township, and library. This just goes to the overview of the budget process. We practice zero-based budgeting, which is essentially having to justify every item based on cost or need, which we have done at least 1 million times since this budget was first being drafted. Again, the process starts in October when all departments meet with Eugenia. They sort of give them her wish list. And then throughout the next couple of months, we sort of try to figure out what we have them decide, okay, what's your first priority of things that you need? And then let's categorize priority 2 of things that you would like to have, but don't necessarily need. And then what we do is we sort of go out the next 5 years. So if it's something they don't necessarily need this year, but they know they're definitely going to need a new piece of equipment next year, we'll at least put it in the column for next year so we can anticipate some of the capital expenses in particular that are coming down the pike. And then the administrator and CFO work with mayor and the council finance committee to prepare a preliminary draft budget for presentation to the mayor and council. And that was presented in February before COVID hit. So some of these budget challenges, municipalities and counties are prohibited from increasing their final appropriations by more than 2%. There are some exceptions, grants, debt service, capital improvements, and reserve for uncollected taxes. Governing bodies may, by ordinance, increase that final appropriation by 3.5% and establish what's called a cap bank for up to roughly 2 years for the difference between its final appropriation and the 3.5%. Those 2 years are specific to the appropriations cap. The council recently voted on the ordinance to approve the cap bank. I believe that was at the last meeting. And that essentially provides a little bit of cushion for any sort of unanticipated costs. So I tried to put in green here to explain in plain English, the benefits of a cap bank include it helps the township responsibly plan for unforeseen expenditures. Banks, it literally means like you bank it for a rainy day when you need it. It's the amount by which we can increase the taxes if needed. The appropriations cap, as referenced before, can be banked for 2 years. The levy cap can be banked longer. Having this bank does not mean the township will definitely use it. Actually, in the recent past, it's only been used to cover health insurance related costs in Berkeley Heights. In fact, in the past 10 years, it's only been used 3 times, and those have all been due to cost increases that we had no control over, such as pensions and health costs.
And basically it has been used those years when the health insurance or the pension has gone to a level, like 5, 6, 7%. And those are things that are not under the control of the municipality.
So slide 8, these are just a few of these are the main shared services we have. We're always looking to increase shared services, not just with the county, but also with neighboring towns. We are at the intersection of towns within 4 different counties, Morris, Union, Somerset, and Essex. So it provides us with a unique opportunity. And also there's always ways to expand our shared services with the Board of Ed as well. So it's something we're always seeking, not only to save money, but also to increase efficiencies. These are also some of the grants we typically go for. Most of these are yearly.
Yes.
So that helps offset a lot of costs, especially for capital projects and preservation that we need. 10, these are just some of the various services provided to our residents, complete with cute little icons to make the slide a little more exciting for everyone. But what we are trying to do, especially with these shared services, is to increase services that maybe our residents didn't have before, with not necessarily having the costs increase in a commensurate fashion. All right, Eugenia, want to do this slide?
Yeah, and this basically, this slide gives us all the non-discretionary fixed costs the township has. These are basically costs that a little bit out of our control that we have to have in order to operate as a municipality. And some of the increases that you can see, we have now lost up. That basically that was the 25,900 was when we created LOSUP. That's actually for 2 years of LOSUP.
I just want to remind everybody what LOSUP is. This was the ballot initiative. This was the referendum that was on the ballot last November to support our volunteer rescue squad. That's what that is. Length of service awards program.
Basically, it's the length of service award, like a little retirement fund for the rescue squad in this case.
The very active members. Yep.
And there are certain guidelines that they have to follow. The debt service also went up. As you can see, the debt service also went up, and that was basically due to the permanent financing that we did last year. When you go permanent, before that, we were paying principal. Berkeley Heights was paying principal, but not enough. By going permanent financing, we were able last year to fix the interest on all of the ordinance that we had passed in the prior 7-8 years, but also the principal payment is a little bit higher, and hopefully we'll be paying down the debt. It will pay down the debt sooner. Also the reserve from collected taxes because of COVID, and the reserve from collected taxes is really like an appropriation expenditure that we put in the budget, but it's really not a money appropriation. It's just like a plug-in figure that it's a number because there's no way that we're going to be collecting 100% of the taxes every year. So that is a little bit of a cushion for those taxes that are not collected.
Right, and we increased that a little bit this year because with COVID, we thought the tax collection rate would be less than it was. So that's why that increase is there.
Yes, increased by 652,000 to give us a little bit more cushion. Public services, that's another one of the areas that you're going to see there's a little bit of a difference there. And that went down to 10,000 because of we have the chair service agreement with Union County. So that is not part of this cost. It's in the chair service area. And you can see the share service, we had an increase in some of the share service agreements also. And deferred charges, we had $100,000 increase in deferred charges. That's basically an accounting that receivable that we have to raise for the next few years.
Okay, this is a continuation of non-discretionary costs.
Yes, and the next slide 12. It's basically, it gives you in that area, the only one that there's a little bit is the planning board. Mm-hmm. We had an increase in the planning board because some of the professionals and because some of the master plan. And the affordable housing, we didn't put anything in the budget this year because we have enough in the reserve in the affordable housing trust. And they allow us to take a percentage of that to pay for some of the administrative professional costs for that.
Right, we didn't need to add to that.
We didn't need to put it in the budget. Now, on analysis of costs, the next slide, this shows basically the non-discretionary, the discretionary costs, and also the non-discretionary fixed cost that we have. And
Essentially what this means is we have very little room to play with after accounting for all of the costs that we have no control over or are forced to pay. There's not that much room where we actually do have some wiggle room.
this is just the slide shows you where the revenues, the budget. The revenue, in the revenues, we have the budget, we have the municipal tax levy, we have the library levy, and then the rest of it is just revenues that we have to generate, the town has to generate through the various sources. And then the operations, we have the salaries and wages, which is, it's high, and also all the other operating expenses that we have, and that includes also the debt service and everything else. Now, this is a little bit broken down, the summary of the revenues. Okay, we're using also to work with mayor council to help out, you know, to come up with a budget that had no tax impact for the residents. We increased the surplus that we are using by almost 500,000. Some of the local revenues, they went down, and that the majority of that 40,000 is the municipal court. As we all know, we get court fees because of the, you know, all the tickets and all the, you know, generated by the court. The court was closed for the last 2-3 months. So we lowered, that's one of the revenues that we had to lower under the local revenues.
And this is where we really try to be conservative, because we'd rather underestimate revenues that come in rather than overestimate. And then anything that comes in over our estimates obviously is great, but we just didn't want to be caught you know, shorthanded here. So for example, like the construction code fees, those could be more upwards in the area of 700,000, but we just really wanted to be careful. And this is just a revenue distribution pie chart that shows where all the revenue is distributed to. A lot of that we just went over.
Mm-hmm. The next one is basically a summary of all the appropriations. General appropriations, they decrease. We went back because of COVID and all of that, and a lot of, you know, we look at every single department and we cut down in some of the operating expenses, or in the salaries area, all the summer help, you know, that was taken out of the budget for all the various departments. Then the library and other, basically, we have a $35,000 increase. That's the municipal library as well as the LOSAP. That's part of that category.
And then I believe the other bigger increase is for capital improvements. That is mainly to our sewer plant that we mentioned before, badly needed sewer repairs that will be much more costly down the road if we do not fix them or replace now. And also a lot of these are to maintain compliance with our DEP permits.
And we also talk about the municipal debt service, the deferred charges, and the reserve for uncollected.
And this is a pie chart that just essentially shows you that the expense distribution. You can see the employee costs, which is salary, wages, it's not just salaries, wages, pension, taxes, Social Security, and healthcare costs all go into that as well. And then these are just the disclosure requirements. We have a user-friendly budget document. Our budget documents will all be posted to the Township website. They are currently there under the Finance Department for the previous years. And this is just a quick rundown of the budget meetings that were held. And then also public service announcement as of today. Again, thank you, thank you, thank you. Our tax collection rate is 98.17%. Eugenia has been giving the council, giving us all daily updates. So thank you, Berkeley Heights, for doing that. Any questions? I'll stop sharing my screen now.
I have a question. Why are we presenting this to the public right now? And we were about to vote on it and didn't present it 2 weeks ago?
Eugenia, do you want to explain the process?
The process, the state requirement is that you have to, after you introduce the budget, you have to advertise it. And you have to advertise the whole budget, and then you have the public hearing. And you have the public hearing right before the adoption of the budget. So this is basically, we have this is the public hearing to the public, and then the adoption of the budget.
We're about to vote on it, so then I request that we reopen the public hearing on this because the public's just got a chance to see this right now.
Yeah, I would recommend that we consider reopening the public hearing if we're allowed, because there's a lot more detail on this now that the public is just.
Yes,
Yeah, I think
they're
that,
just getting it right now.
are we able to do that, Mr. Weber?
Is Guido on?
Yeah, I'm over here.
Okay.
I mean, if you know, it's up to you. I mean, I don't think that there's a, you know, you can decide one way or the other on this one.
I would favor reopening the public hearing.
Is that a motion?
I can motion if you'd like it to be one.
Oh, yes.
Why don't you make it
Madam
an
Mayor.
official- Make it an official motion, Jean.
Okay, I'll motion that we reopen the public hearing on the budget.
Second.
Second it.
Any discussion? Roll call?
Mrs. Brahimai?
Wait,
Yes,
I'm sorry, Anna, does this, I'm sorry, guys, hold on one second. We were in the middle of voting on the final adoption. Is there anything procedurally that you need us to do before we back into this hearing?
No, because we stopped right at time. I think it was fine. Yes.
Just want to make sure we're good procedurally.
Yeah.
Roll call.
So we'll do, okay, Mrs. Brahimai, Mr. Kudo,
Yes.
Mrs. Kingsley,
yes.
Mr. Maderos,
Yes.
Mrs. Pogue,
Yes.
Mr. Yellen.
Yes.
Liza, the public hearing is now reopened. Liza, do we have any residents?
No, just to clarify again, if you either do the raise your hand function, not on your video, but on in the little icon here, put your name and contact information in the Zoom chat. Sorry, name and address. And then we'll do the 3 minutes. Okay. Hold on. Heidi Cohen, 182 Dogwood. Okay, go ahead.
So I just wanted to thank you for reopening the hearing. I have watched and/or been in person for many years of budgets. So the CFO is correct. You do have to do the budget publicly 2 weeks ago. My understanding, and the CFO, please correct me, the PowerPoint presentation, my understanding is that's always been optional. Historically in Berkeley Heights, that's been provided when the budget's been introduced to give, as the administrator said, a straightforward explanation to people about what's going to be in the budget, because the long, complicated version that actually gets passed is very difficult. Johnson Caglia may be one of the people in our community who is expert at reading through the official budget. My understanding is this PowerPoint is done to make it easily accessible and digestible for the public. I have never in my experience seen it presented moments before a vote. Generally, it's presented with enough time for the public to understand, digest it, and come ready with questions. So I would simply ask the council to reconsider, now that this is out in the public domain. I'm not sure when it was released. I imagine today, I could be wrong, but if you could let us know, generally that should be in the hands of the public so that they're prepared to ask questions. To now ask people if they can ask questions, I don't know that they've had the time to digest it. So I would actually suggest that the vote on the budget be put off so the public.
Thank you, Heidi.
Okay, let me find him. John McGay's 56 Kuntz Ave. Just looking for you, John.
I am muted, is that all right? Or?
Oh, yeah, thanks.
Okay. No problem. So the question I have is with regard to the Cop Stop Violence School Program. That feels, my understanding is that was a grant received in 2018. I actually wrote an OPA request trying to find out from the police department what that was for. I got a general response that it was for equipment upgrades, but there was no disclosure as to what. So this feels weird because it felt like a one-time equipment upgrade. And I don't know, are we getting more money again for this? And what's going on with this money and what is it being used for in the schools?
John, can you say the name of it again? You're like
The Cop Stop Violence or Cop Stop School Violence Program. That's the Cop Stop School Violence Grant. The Cop Stop School Violence Grant.
I can answer that, Eliza. That was we had it in the budget for 2019, and that grant is a federal grant that the school, it's given to the schools, basically. The schools get it for technical improvements for the protection of the children. But they have to coordinate it with the police and the municipalities. The money comes through the municipality. So basically, the money passes through us, but the school is the one that is actually applying for the grant, and they're the ones that are working with the police for all the technical improvements for the safety of the kids.
And thank you. So can you give me an idea as to what these improvements are? Because when I submitted the Oprah request, it was denied.
Sir, I couldn't tell you because that is basically, because it is the safety of the school, they don't want to make it public, to protect the children and the school as to exactly what technical improvements they're doing.
I mean, you couldn't give a general sort of overview of that. Well, not you specifically. I'm not expecting. I don't know what level of involvement, but that feels like kind of a dangerous shield, right? Like any money that we're going to use is for the safety of the kids, and we can't give you absolutely any information about that. None, other than technical improvements.
You might, like I said,
Like it's cameras, or I mean, what?
You can put that Oprah request maybe to the school or to us for the police department. I don't have that information.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thanks, John.
Thank you. Next resident.
Okay, hold on. Actually, hold on. We have the police chief here. He said he could answer this. Can you just unmute yourself? It'd be faster.
Can you hear me?
Yes. Oh, thank you.
Okay, so there's a few things that were done there. There was a big part of it was a communications system that integrated panic buttons with 911 and also some of the lights, the flashing lights outside the building of the school. So when there is an emergency or some sort of event, they can be activated so people know that something's going on within the school and not to approach the school or come in the school. And there were some other infrastructure improvements to secure the facility itself.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Chief.
Okay, we have Sean Kane, 46 Sycamore. Sean, can you unmute yourself?
Sure. Just a real quick question. I was taking a look at the PowerPoint. I was trying to find it. I thought I saw it on the screen. Just a question about, I think there was like a $400K or so line item for the liquor license. Is that correct? I was just trying to understand, does that take into account, there's an ask from Connell about that they can modify the license. So does that tie into that, or are they two separate things?
The liquor license was the extension that was passed by the council about a month ago now, I guess it is. So that's the revenue. That's the revenue that you're seeing in the budget that was taken in by the township as a result of that liquor license extension.
So it's just an extension. It doesn't take into account how they would like to possibly like leverage their square footage and maybe.
That's all set out in the resolution.
The liquor license extension resolution?
Right.
We voted on that on May 26th.
Right, but my question was that I know Connell kind of wanted to take full advantage of the square footage of the site, and I guess my question is that resolved? Is that still an open question?
I think you're asking about.
Are you talking about the rezoning, Sean?
Yeah.
Oh, no, the rezoning is not resolved. The liquor license is completely separate from the zoning.
Okay.
The zoning is nowhere right now. So the liquor license was passed back on May 26th. Whatever the detail is contained within that resolution or the appendage behind the resolution, and that lays out what's allowed.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thanks, Sean. I think I cut the chief off a second ago, so I'm gonna, sorry about that. Let him continue.
Yeah, I just think it's important, especially that we're talking about the budget. Although we wrote this grant prior to Alyssa's law being passed and signed, and we put the grant in requesting the upgrade, which included the panic alarms being integrated directly to the police department. That subsequently, after we applied, ended up being put into law. Therefore, would have been mandated, is mandated, and we would have had to pay basically with taxpayer dollars if we were not awarded this grant. So I think that's important to note.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you, Chief.
Howard Rourke, AKA Thomas Forger, 14 Road. Okay, Tom, you're unmuted.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
All right. For a long time, I've been asking about this municipal alliance. Basically, it's pretty much a waste of money. So you could cut that out. It won't save you much. I think it's about $4,000 of tax dollars, but basically it doesn't accomplish anything. I'd like to know if the cost of the school resource officers is totally covered by the school board. Yeah, that's it.
Eugenia, do you want to speak to that?
The agreement, are you talking about the 25,000 a year that the school is given for the police officer?
The reimbursement.
The reimbursement? I believe that the agreement was based on the hours that the police officers it's providing to the school. Back to 3 years ago when the agreement was put into place.
Okay, thank you, Gina.
Okay, does anybody else have any questions? Don't see any hands up. I don't see anybody in the chat.
And Dr. Ferger, I just wanted to add that as per, you made a comment last year during budget time that you wanted to see that particular item separately. And we separated in the budget this year.
Happy birthday. Okay, I don't, going once, going twice. All right, that's it.
Motion to close the public
I'll move to
hearing.
close the public hearing.
Second. Any discussion? Roll call.
Mrs. Brahimai?
Yes.
Mr. Kudo?
Yes.
Mrs. Kingsley?
Yes.
Mr. Medeiros?
Yes.
Mrs. Pogue?
She's on mute.
You're on mute.
Still, yes.
Mr. Yellen?
Yes.
Sorry. Okay, so I have read the adoption for year 2020, section 2. I think at this point, and I can just simply ask for a motion in a second on this again. So can I just get another motion on this?
Move to adopt the budget for 2020.
Second.
Any discussion?
I mean, I would like for us to give public a little more, I mean, I don't know how everybody else feels about it.
Let's look at a point on that. We advertised, let me just ask, did we advertise the introduced budget and post it on the website on May 30th, according to the PowerPoint?
Yes.
Not the PowerPoint was not.
Yes.
The introduced budget.
The budget introduced.
The budget has to be advertised 28 days before the public hearing and the adoption.
I would respectfully say that I think having gone through the correct procedure in terms of introducing and so forth, I would not be in favor of an additional delay just based on the PowerPoint.
Also, I don't think there were a lot of people on the chat or in the forum today, and there weren't a lot of questions. So I think we would have had more questions if people had some issues.
Well, I mean, you have 47 people in the meeting. I mean, the town has a lot more people than that, but yes, I guess.
I do, as Eugenie and I like put it together, I definitely think it makes more sense to do this at introduction and then the PowerPoint at introduction, because it gives people a visual representation of what the numbers are. And then to your point, Gentiana, they have a couple of weeks to figure out their questions. So
right.
That sounds
I
good.
agree with that. I agree with that completely.
Yeah.
Eugenia, when is the state budget due? Like when do we have to file this with the state?
We're already late with the
We're
budget.
late.
And the
So we
reason
don't
why
really-
we're
okay.
late was because of that. And as a matter of fact, we got an email, and I think Anna got it also, from the state saying that they're already sending some of the tax rates to the county tax board for those municipalities that already adopted the budget. So we are already late. We're one of the towns that are late.
All right, well, I mean, for future references, I think we should do this PowerPoint, because otherwise I don't understand why have a PowerPoint at all if people are not, the people understand. It's easy for the public to understand. Why even have a PowerPoint if people don't have enough time to actually digest the budget, then, give us a chance to before we actually vote on it. So I think,
good point.
Obviously we're late right now, but I think for the future, we need to change that.
Yeah, but this is not a state mandated PowerPoint. This is something that Berkeley Heights has traditionally done. So I think we're in
And
compliance.
traditionally, it should have been done a lot sooner.
Or not, it should have been done before for the public to digest. I mean, if we're gonna do a PowerPoint, what's the point then?
Can I and I agree with you that doing it earlier is better, but can I also just remind everybody that we have gone through a global pandemic and there's been a lot going on, and we've been asking a lot of our staff and one another. So a little forgiveness this year I think goes a long way, but we can definitely do it better next year.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's fine, absolutely. I'm just saying maybe just incorporate it a little earlier for next year.
Good suggestion.
I agree.
Roll call?
Mrs. Brahimai?
Yes.
Mr. Kudo?
Yes.
Mrs. Kingsley?
Yes.
Mr. Maderos?
Yes.
Mrs. Pogue?
Yes.
Mr. Yellen?
Yes.
Okay, very good. Thank you all for your hard work. Appreciate that.
I move to open the citizens hearing on agenda items, or I should I move to open the hearing on agenda items and the citizens hearing.
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call, and then I'll read the instructions after roll call.
Mrs. Brahimai?
Yes.
Mr. Kudo?
Yes.
Mrs. Kingsley?
Yes.
Mr. Maderos?
Yes.
Mrs. Pogue?
Yes.
Mr. Yellen?
Yes.
Okay, there will be one public comment session before the agenda items. There will be no public comment at the end of the meeting. All participants, with the exception of council, will be on audio only and will be muted until the public comment period. People can request to address the council at any time by putting your name and address in the chat box to the right of your screen. The host, who is Liza, will see these requests and call on you during the public comment period. Each resident will get 1 3-minute period to make the remarks. Council will respond only when the resident is completely finished and back on mute. This is to ensure each person who wants to ask a question gets the chance to, and will avoid people talking over each other so everyone is clearly heard. When the host Liza calls on people to ask their question, they will do it directly via audio only, not video. Please indicate when your questions are complete. Thank you.
Okay. Thomas Forger, 13 Dorset Road. Sorry, Howard Work.
Not John Gold.
But go ahead. Go ahead, Tom.
What happened to me?
Tom, can you hear us? All right, Tom, I'm going to try to come back to you in a minute if you're having technical difficulties. Hold on, I see him somewhere else. Maybe he's over here.
He has 2 boxes.
I know. Okay, Tom, I can't unmute you on your Tom Forger alias, so I'm going to go to the next one. I'll come back. Jeff Renarin, 20 Wardle Ave.
Yes, hi. Thank you for the opportunity to ask questions. This is Jeff Warnerin. Actually following up from a couple meetings ago, after the May 12th meeting when there was a presentation of the municipal complex. In order to seek additional understanding, I submitted a couple OPRA requests on the 14th and 19th of May. They've been extended multiple, maybe 3 or 4 times now. These are simple document requests of status reports from our contractors and backup documentation for our change orders, which should all be easily readily available. I'm trying to understand what's taking so long. Thank you. That's the end of my question.
Okay, thank you, Jack.
I can actually answer that. Some of them are actually, they're not simple requests at all. And I know some of them would take me off what I'm doing for days. And per COVID, when we're in a state of an emergency, the GRC has said we need to provide a reasonable effort to comply with OPRA, which we are definitely doing. So requests that don't take as long to respond to, we are trying to get out the door. And I know Anna is working with each requester like really diligently, try to let them know what's going on. But I mean, absolutely, I know we have to ask for some extensions, and I apologize for that, but we're trying to reopen the economy right now, the local economy, and Mass is trying to negotiate end deadline for the municipal complex or the heat of those negotiations. So they're also trying to get the documentation together. I think Anna may have updated you this week on that, but you're getting one batch of responses, I believe, this week, and the others are actually going through the one that requires more heavy lifting. The multi-part reports request requires our legal counsel to go through every page of that report and see if everything can be released publicly. And we do have to pay for that. So that's, I apologize for the delay again. We're working day and night. We're trying to do everything we can to get it to you. So.
Okay.
I appreciate that, and thank you for that. I just ask if, things that are readily available that are, status reports, if they could be provided more quickly, that would be great. I understand that there are other documents that are going to require legal review. That's very understandable.
Thank you for understanding that. And there is an option for us to do it piecemeal, like give you some things. I think that's, I don't know if that's Anna's prerogative or not, but to give you some things, it's a little less organized than giving you everything at once, but that may be an option if some of the other things are going to take longer. So thank you.
So if we could just, the back and forth is hard to follow on Zoom. So if we could just finalize this conversation and go on to the next resident. I saw Dr. Forger Pierce somewhere up there at some point.
Let me see. Yes.
Yeah, I'm still here. Can you hear me?
Yes.
There we go.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Good.
Yeah.
Good. All right. So on this Mayor's Advisory Committee, will the committee have a budget? And if so, if not, how are the out-of-pocket expenses paid? Do you want me to do all my questions?
Yes,
I'd actually prefer if you just answer as we go along.
Go ahead.
It's harder. So if you could answer all your questions, I appreciate that.
Things are breaking up. All right. Is there any limit on out-of-pocket expenses? There is? Okay. What is the limit? Is there any council pre-approval of expenditures for this committee? Will this committee keep any minutes? Are the meetings open to the public? Difficult question. What is truth? How is truth established? What are the measures of success for this committee? And there's a reference committee. I didn't know what that was. And there's a reference to racial healing. I don't know what that is. And why does this committee advise on funding opportunities for the Berkeley Heights Diversity Council when that's not even a township committee? That's in section 3D. You want me to go through those again?
No, I think I got it.
as I'm looking at this is completely different than what Tom has been
Right.
asking about.
So I was going to ask Eliza, actually, at this point, could you read?
Things are breaking up, Angie.
I'm sorry. I was asking Liza to read the changes to the resolution. There have been a number of changes and a number of omissions, and a whereas that was added. Unfortunately, we didn't get that feedback until later, and we weren't able to put that together, but I think Craig and Guido worked to get something to Liza so that she could read it. So that might eliminate some of the things that you're concerned.
Yes. So the council members all have it, but I will read it, and some whereas clauses were also taken out. Whereas the Township of Berkeley Heights is committed to supporting inclusion, racial healing, education, and community engagement. And whereas in order to achieve the goal of inclusion, healing, education, and community involvement, it requires the participation of township stakeholders, which includes the mayor, governing body, police department, board of education, clergy, Berkeley Heights Diversity Council, and residents in order to effectuate and implement change in the township. And whereas the Township of Berkeley Heights desires to establish an advisory committee that involves the aforementioned stakeholders to advise the Township Council on how the township can support community-based change to address the effects of racism. And whereas this advisory committee shall be known as the Mayor's Advisory Committee for Truth, Racial Healing, and Transformation of Berkeley Heights. And this is a new clause. The township has turned to the Berkeley Heights Diversity Council as partners in this endeavor, and they have agreed to convene, facilitate, and to lead efforts in the community and to help seek funding for the Committee for Truth, Racial Healing, and Transformation. And whereas the Berkeley Heights Diversity Council is an independent-based 501c3 corporation established in 2016, dedicated to the vision to honor and embrace the diverse culture in Berkeley Heights. The whereas clauses that were removed were the ones involving the Kellogg Foundation or the Rutgers entity. So those all just came out. Now the rest is the same. Do you want me to read the rest or?
So go ahead and read the whole thing.
Okay. Now therefore be it resolved by the Mayor and Township Council of the Township of Berkeley Heights, County of Union, State of New Jersey as follows. The above recitals are incorporated herein as though fully set forth at length. The Mayor and Township Council hereby authorize the establishment of a committee to be named the Mayor's Advisory Committee for Truth, Racial Healing, and Transformation of Berkeley Heights. The purpose of the, for short, TRHT Advisory Committee shall be as follows. A, to advise on how to develop community-engaged education programs and community youth programs that promote interethnic, intergenerational civic engagement. And B, to advise on funding opportunities to support the TRHT Advisory Committee and Berkeley Heights Diversity Council initiatives and community-engaged education projects, as well as county, state, and other grant prospects. The members of the TRHT Advisory Committee shall serve terms expiring on December 31st, 2020. Which members shall include Township Mayor or designee, President of the Berkeley Heights Board of Education or designee, and the Superintendent of the Berkeley Heights School District or designee, President of the Berkeley Heights Diversity Council or designee, and a member of the clergy appointed by the Mayor, a police chief or lieutenant of community policing division, 2 members of the Township Council of differing political parties where possible appointed by the Mayor, and 4 members of the public at large appointed by the Mayor. The advisory committee will organize immediately upon appointment of its members. All members will serve without compensation, except that they may be reimbursed for out-of-pocket expenses. The advisory committee shall report to the Mayor and Township Council on a quarterly basis. The Township Clerk is directed to forward an adopted copy of this resolution to each member of the Mayor's Advisory Committee for Truth, Racial Healing, and Transformation of Berkeley Heights. Be it further resolved that it is the intention of the Berkeley Heights Township Council that the Mayor's Advisory Committee for Truth, Racial Healing, and Transformation of Berkeley Heights shall function in an advisory capacity and shall not be an administrative body.
Okay, so based on the changes with that resolution, the answer to will the advisory committee have a budget? The answer is no. Limit to out-of-pocket expenses, it would be in line with other committees. Whatever limitations there are, we will be consistent about that. Obviously, it's subject to council approval, as the budget is subject to council approval. We will post the minutes. I don't know about the provision, whether it will be open to the public, because there are going to be some sensitive conversations, and I think that that's something that we need to think through. And the Pillars of Success, that was a part of the Kellogg Foundation, their programming, which has been removed, so that's no longer an issue. So I think that covers it.
Okay. John McGay's 56 Kuntz Avenue. John, can you unmute yourself, please? Yeah.
Okay. So I wanted to kind of piggyback on Tom's, not his question specifically, but on the same resolution. And I'm actually, it's not a secret, I'm pretty disappointed. I mean, most cities and townships are focusing on the core issue, which is police accountability or accountability over departments, and this doesn't seem to speak to that at all. It was 3 months ago that you had a proposal signed by 30 residents asking for a committee of oversight over police and schools program. And the oversight doesn't mean that you're anti-police or that you hate the police. It's just a recognition of the data and the evidence that's out there. And this resolution doesn't seem to speak to any of that. And I guess I'm trying to figure out what is our township going to do to incorporate real citizen review, real accountability, parental review. It doesn't have to be adversarial. It doesn't have to be mean. I mean, it shouldn't really be this hard to have something where, especially parents, have the ability to shape foreign policy, especially in schools around their children. Even before all this stuff was going on, there were big questions about police in schools, which the town council approved, that involved, trauma to children as a result of drills, the impact of police in schools, and data points that would be good to measure. So I'm not getting why none of that is here or even talked about. I mean, that's my question. Well, I don't know if that's a question. That's more like a rant, but that's kind of what I have to say.
Does that conclude your comment or question?
I think so.
Okay. There are going to be a number of topics that I believe this committee should be tackling because it will include the mayor, the governing body, the police chief, the Board of Education, member of clergy, and residents. And I view this as a discussion as to what those issues are and what we need to do as a community to collaborate and move forward and make sure that we're better and stronger. I cannot articulate specifics. I am one person on this committee. I think it has to be a collaborative agenda and mission as to how we see ourselves moving forward as a community. So that would be my response. Next President Liza?
We seem to have lost her.
That's not good.
Oh, no.
Okay, sorry. I'm back. Okay, Margaret Ellis, 102 Twin Falls Road. Margaret, if you can unmute yourself, that'll be faster.
Hi, thank you for the opportunity. I just want to say this is now the second week in a row that there have been changes to an ordinance or a resolution that came before council, the second meeting in a row, that haven't been made available to the public before the meeting. And it's just really hard to be engaged if we don't have copies of what you're voting on. So I understand from a legal perspective that it isn't significant enough changes to warrant a reissuance, but if it could be provided on the website, similar to what was done today in the Zoom link, there was a link to the budget presentation. I don't know why the revised ordinance couldn't have been put there as well to say there's an update to this. So thank you for all you're doing, and that's my comment.
Can we do that? Can we put that in the chat as we did with the budget?
I will work on it. I have two different devices.
Madam Mayor, if I could.
I actually saw that not in the chat, but I saw it on the website with the Zoom information. About 3/4 of the way down, there was a link to the budget presentation because I couldn't find it searching on the website. And somebody pointed me to that link.
Yes, so just so everybody on here knows, in the website post that goes up every week ahead of a council meeting, I will always include the link to that week's agenda. And in this case, I put the budget document link also in that. So everything was in one place for that week's meeting. So I would, for efficiency purposes, just look in that post going forward. I can Yes, but the one that is on that agenda, Margaret, that you're talking about is not the most recent one. We were just talking because some last minute changes were being made.
Right, that's my point, is that those of us that are on this call, we care. And, we read the agenda, so I read the ordinance and I looked at it compared to what it was before. And, what's being voted on is different. And so, we want to be engaged. We want to be supportive of the efforts, and, but it's hard when we don't have the information in front of us that is said to be publicly available because the council is voting on something that is not what was distributed.
I can actually put
you.
this in the chat right now.
Margaret, does that conclude your questions or comments?
Yes, yes, it does.
No, Stephen was trying to speak, so I wanted to try to get to Stephen.
Yes, the reason in this particular case is that the amendment or the revision to the resolution came about as part of, in response to an email that the governing body received earlier this afternoon. My personal view after receiving that email from the Diversity Council was that certain portions of the resolution ought to be amended and revised in substantially the form that we are now have before the governing body in order to address those concerns. Unfortunately, because of the very short amount of time involved between when the email was sent to the governing body, obviously we were not able to provide that to the residents with the normal kind of timing that we have when we put forward the agenda. So that's the circumstances with regards to this resolution.
And it's timely.
But if it was so quick, then maybe more time should have been given to review it in more detail before it's voted on. I can't really say because now I'm going to have to, basically review the changes, and they sound fine based on what Liza said. But, my point is this is now 2 meetings in a row that the council has voted on things that were not provided to the public in advance of the meeting. So I'm just asking for a way that can be made to happen, whether it's at the beginning of the Zoom meeting, you make an announcement and post the links. It would be better on the website because then people that aren't on the Zoom meeting right now can potentially still read it. So that's all I'm asking. Thanks.
Thank you, Margaret. And I think that's a good suggestion. If we have something that's last minute like that, there's always a way to sort of make sure that people can see it. So that's a fair point.
And just so I put it in the group chat, and just so you know, all the whereas clauses about the Kellogg Foundation, or it's escaping me, what's the other one? The Rutgers entity was taken out.
It's the same thing.
Second to last whereas clause was added. So the second to last up from now therefore be it resolved. Okay. I have,
next resolution, please.
yes, I have. Okay, Toya Facey, 178 Riverbend. Toya, can you unmute yourself, please?
I sure can. Thank you very much. So I'm speaking as an individual citizen, and I just wanted to comment on the resolution. The one thing I will ask the town council and the mayor is to hold off on voting on the resolution. And the reason why is because I feel like diversity and inclusion is very important topics. And this resolution feels like it's symbolic rather than something meaningful and sustainable. I take this very personally as a Black woman with Black children in town. And I want to ensure that whatever we are implementing from an advisory council perspective is appropriate for the town of Berkeley Heights. And it is something that is sustainable and not something that is a program of the week. And that it's also something meaningful. So my request to the town council is, and I think to piggyback on some of the other comments in terms of, there are a lot of people in town who are very interested and who care, but because of all these significant changes, to table this until to give everyone enough time to review it and ensure that what we're implementing in terms of an advisory council is something that is meaningful, and I think most importantly, sustainable. Sustainability is key. So that's my recommendation, and that's my comment. Thank you.
Thank you, Toya. So first of all, thank you for all the good difference. We have, I did ask the council 2 weeks ago to hold off on this while we made some additional changes. We have made those changes. I do think that this is a committee that is sustainable, but it's also done via resolution. So we can make additional changes as we feel the committee needs to evolve. And I think that's an important point to make, that this isn't something that is static. This is something that can and should evolve. I think that waiting those 2 weeks, I think that there are a number of community topics that have arose that really need the attention of this group and the attention of the stakeholders involved. So while I truly understand your point, and it's a great point, I do believe that we have to move forward and start to embark in our mission and start to tackle some of these issues that are being talked about community-wide in a collaborative fashion that hopefully allows us to be better and stronger. And I feel that if we wait, 2 more weeks, 3 more weeks, 4 more weeks, that some of these issues are going to be problematic for our community. So that's my perspective.
What do you mean by problematic for our community?
If we're not collaborating and talking as stakeholders and trying to find solutions and educating our community, I think that we could create more rifts throughout the township rather than coming together as one entity with one positive message about Berkeley Heights.
The question I'm going to ask is that there's 2 questions I'm just curious about. I read through the resolution this afternoon.
Hey, can we wait to I want to make sure the residents get the opportunity.
Okay, fine. You're right. Thank you very much, Stephen. You're right. Sorry, go ahead.
Okay, Richard Mutula, 5 Hastings.
I think you've had Bargavi over there with a hand for a while. Do you see her? Light?
I got her.
Oh,
thank you. She's
sorry,
next.
just making sure I saw you.
Yep, she's next.
All right.
Richard, are you unmuted?
Nope, he's not.
Oops. Okay, Richard, go ahead.
Okay, my wife had put in first, so if you don't mind, I'll let her precede me.
Is that all right?
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Okay. All right. I first wanted to agree with Margaret Ellis. I think that when you make these major changes to ordinances or resolutions, you are actually limiting public participation. You give the public 3 minutes to speak, and people have to decide if they want to speak and what they want to say, and they have to prioritize what they want to say. So when you change something at the last minute, people aren't prepared to speak everything that they want to say, and I think that really is not helpful if you really want to get public input. The rest of my comments relate to resolution number 4. I had previously asked for information on the specific inequalities, the bias, whatever racial problems we have in this town. And the answer I got was to listen to the speeches that were given at Memorial Park. Madam Mayor, you said there was a lot of work to do. I want to know specifically what types of problems there are in the town, what this committee is designed to address. And on what kind of information is this based? Are there letters? Are there phone calls? Are there emails? Where are you getting this information from so that you know you're solving a problem that's out there and that we know what we're trying to solve? The second thing that I wanted to do was talk about the resolution itself. The resolution part of the resolution calls for transforming. So what are we transforming from and what are we transforming to? I'd like to know specifics, what you want to change. And then the other point I want to talk about is the fact that this is a resolution authorizing a committee for truth. We have now arrived at George Orwell's 1984, 36 years later. We're not calling it the Ministry of Truth, we're calling it a Committee for Truth. And apparently I must have missed this, but apparently now the government gets to determine truth as opposed to individuals figuring out facts and making final decisions. I want to know how the truth is going to be determined. Do these committee members have certain senses that no residents have, that or will they be put on the rack? How are they going to determine truth? And how will all the township ensure that all the committee members come to the same truth? How will I be imbued with this truth as the committee determines it? Do I get like a shock in the middle of the night or something so that I know what's true and what's not true? And then is the dissemination and the determination of this truth just limited to Berkeley Heights, or does it go all over the world? How far does this truth go? And if it turns out that I don't somehow have this truth imbued in me and I disagree, what happens to me? Do I still have the right to free speech to say what I want, or is this like the final end all of everything?
Okay. Does that conclude your questions and comments?
That was 3 minutes.
Okay. As it relates to racial problems, you know, I think that obviously we've all heard feedback. I've heard from people over the last 2 years where they may have felt marginalized or perhaps not welcome by certain things that happen in town. So these are conversations with people that are now coming forward and probably coming forward more truthfully as a result of what's going on currently in the nation. What are we transforming to, from what and to? I mean, it's precisely that. It's a community that's welcoming to all, a place where people can, want to talk about truth, a place where people can talk honestly and openly about perhaps their feelings that they've had about maybe living in this community or experiences that they've had outside of this community, perhaps preventing those experiences from happening here, or maybe, you know, looking at what's going on, whether, you know, it's something that happens at the town or the Board of Education or within the police department or within, you know, clergy. You know, it's being able to have a transparent and honest and sometimes uncomfortable conversation. And that's what I see those words meaning as it relates to this committee.
Okay, so now we have Richard Matula. Okay, Richard, go ahead.
Okay, thank you. As I read the resolution and the whereas, the first several whereas clauses have not changed, I stopped at a certain point and says, what? I read the second whereas clause, and I'll skip some of the things. Whereas it requires the participation of township stakeholders, includes clergy. And I says, requires the participation of clergy? I see constitutional issues here. How can you require clergy to participate? That to me seems constitutionally problematic. The other point is the title of the committee still remains Truth, Racial Healing, and Transformation. Not all of these concepts are at the same level of knowledge. Truth is an epistemological concept that is more fundamental philosophically than the others. Therefore, truth it's not appropriate to have that in the title at all. And even though things about the Kellogg Foundation were removed, there were the following questions that I think need answered. Why was the TRHT model of the W.K. Kellogg Foundation chosen? How does it fit in with Kellogg's America Healing initiative? Is it a subset? Are there other models from Kellogg? Who suggested using the Kellogg TRHT model and why? Are there other competing initiatives or models from other foundations or organizations that address the same or similar issues? What are they? What are the names? And we need more details. Why was one of these others not chosen? I think that's the end of my questions.
Okay, as it relates to clergy, I see there are many components or pillars of a community, and I think that religion is certainly one of them. And having a representative of the clergy, I think, is a beneficial part of this type of committee. Many similar types of committees at state and federal level do include clergy, and I know that the township attorney has looked at this issue in terms of constitutionality and has found it to be, not a constitutional issue. The Kellogg portion was removed, so many of the questions that I think that you're asking are no longer applicable. The Kellogg Foundation and that particular group and the particular programming has been used with some communities in the area and have had great success, and some of the mayors have been lauding that program, so that's how it was selected. So I think that concludes those answers. Liza, Vice President?
Hi, Cy Bargavi, 146 Robbins. Cy, can you unmute yourself, please?
Yeah, hi. Thank you, Liza. I have a few questions on keeping this advisory board. I think I heard Mrs. Devaney say that it might not be open to public. So what's the basis for that? How are you determining, like, if it's for the community and it's for transformation, and if it's for everybody to be, it has to be open to the public. So at least like a Zoom call, like here, it doesn't have to be in person, but there can be a WebEx, or there can be a dial-in for the residents to give their input or listen in to what's happening in the town. So has it already been determined that this advisory board will not be open to public?
Are those all your questions, Sai?
No, I have some follow-up questions.
Good, go ahead.
And also when you say, so a follow-up to Richard Matula's question is, I do understand that there are some federal and state programs that involve clergy. So are you going to be, there is more diversity in the town. So how are you going to make an outreach to other communities, like other religions, to have their presence? Like, are you only going to go towards a church or clergy, or are you also looking at an input from the Buddhists or the Hindus? And, the town is evolving, it's getting more diverse. So have you thought about that? And what is our township lawyers' advice on that, if at all? Like, let's say the South Asian community wants to have somebody on there. So is that even possible? Those are my two questions.
Okay, those two. Sai, you make a good point about the Zoom and having that open to the public, and having people be able to participate in that. So I think we can make that determination tonight that that's something that we should do. As it relates to religion, and again, we make a very good point that our community is becoming more diverse. What I would hope is the member of the clergy would be sort of the representative, and that person would do the outreach to other religious organizations in town and hopefully collaborate and get their input and bring that forward, just like a singular member of anyone of the stakeholders. I hope that they would get out from their respective positions and be the person to bring that back to the committee, whether it's the police department or us as governing body members listening to the community, members of the community in their respective roles. So that's what I would hope that would be the expectation of the clergy member. And I don't know if Craig wants to speak to the constitutionality. Geez, quickly, could you just briefly discuss that, Craig?
Yeah, this resolution has no effect on advancing or inhibiting any particular religion. It's reflects a clearly secular purpose, and we've reviewed it. We've looked into the applicable case law, both under the state constitution and the federal constitution. We don't see any First Amendment issues at the federal level or any constitutional issues at the state level. Again, this does not require any the purpose of the committee itself, which is merely an advisory committee, does not require any religious purpose itself. The definition of clergy is a widely and broadly defined term, so we're not talking about any specific religion as it relates to the clergy member representative. So the mayor has wide discretion in that appointment for this purpose. And this is somewhat of a self-directed advisory committee. It's got a fairly broad purpose. And issues such as whether or not it's open to the public, unless the resolution in its current form is modified tonight prior to adoption, the advisory board, the advisory committee that is, would have the ability to determine issues of whether any meeting is or is not open to the public, and issues related to minutes, etc. This committee is not legally obligated to be open to the public. If the resolution is adopted, that provision can be inserted, as the mayor suggested a moment ago.
Okay, thank you, Craig. Next, President Loza.
Sorry, Josh Bachner, 29 Cinnamon Tree Lane. Josh, can you unmute yourself, please?
Hello, thank you. I have a couple comments about the more, maybe I guess, technical parts of the resolution, and then kind of an overarching comment about its purpose. So kind of on the technical issues, thank you, Mayor, for changing it to say 2 members of the town council from different parties. I appreciate that. On the issue of clergy, I certainly see the benefit of having a representative from the clergy in terms of looking for people who may already be leaders in our community. However, I agree with previous speakers that I think it is problematic to be giving clergy an assigned seat as part of a religion, because we do have separation of, church and state. But for example, if you were to conclude that they should be one of the members of the public appointed, I certainly think that would be meaningful. But frankly, I'm having trouble taking at face value whether it's constitutional or not, just because, 2 weeks ago, the town council took the position that the no-knock list ordinance curfew, which had a discriminatory effect against Jews, the conclusion was that that would have been constitutional in its original form. So it's certainly hard for me to take at face value that assessment of the constitutionality. So again, my preference would to take out the member of the clergy as an assigned seat, but if you decide to give a seat to a member of the clergy as a public member, I can find that to be, a good choice. In terms of the changes to the resolution tonight, just looking through under number 3, now it's resolved number 3, the purpose of the committee. I am still very confused because the text of the resolution is not matching what I am hearing from the council and mayor about the purpose of the committee. I keep hearing back and forth about, whether they're going to take actions, whether they're going to talk to the police about what oversight may or may not be needed, but that's not what the resolution itself actually says. The resolution says it's to provide advice about educational programs and community projects, and to talk about funding opportunities, and neither of those are, providing feedback on actions our township can take to improve race relations through, town level policies, both for the town and for our police department. I do think that overall, a committee like this could be really, really meaningful, but only if it's equipped to really do actual work and research into our town's history to understand the fact that our affordable housing litigation and past policies, how our regional housing contributions, how our police department works, and really do work into all of those, and then provide recommendations to the council on what to do about those. But at this time, I don't understand, are we rushing to do something or are we not? Are we rushing to take any actions? Are we just rushing to start discussing about possible things we could maybe do later? So I guess my one question would be, what is the real purpose of this? And can you please put that into the resolution? And then just a comment I forgot to make. I do understand that some of this committee's discussions, as I would hope it to be, may not be appropriate for a public setting, but I would ask that under resolved number 6, where it says the committee is going to report on a quarterly basis, that the reports explicitly be made available to the public, just because I know that advisory reports sometimes fall under Oprah exemptions. So again, my question is, what is the purpose?
That conclude your question, Josh? I'm assuming it is. Okay. Again, you know, this is a resolution, and I think as this committee, in my opinion, needs to be a committee that can evolve. These community issues that are coming to light are things that have really been maybe latent perhaps, but certainly haven't been openly discussed. And this committee has to have the ability to be somewhat broad. It needs to have the ability to be amended as the purpose and the mission does evolve, and we figure out as stakeholders what makes sense. So I feel that the way that it's written is appropriate, and hope that makes some sense.
Madam Mayor, if I can just quickly add, one of the reasons that I proposed the amendments that we saw earlier today is that I want the possible potential scope of the committee and the methods it can take and the approaches it can choose to be as open and as broad as possible, so that the full range of potential topics, areas, actions, etc., can be explored by the committee. So I second your view on your view on the matter, and wanted to clarify my own reason for amending it as on top of that.
Thank you, Stephen. Next President, Liza, you're muted.
Lastly, we have Heidi Cohen,
Oh
183
gosh,
Dogwood.
I didn't know I was batting cleanup. That's not a good place to
No,
be.
it looks like there's still more people on the hands up.
So I have a question after listening to tonight's meeting and actually actively attending and listening to meetings. It seems to be, and Margaret Illis pointed it out, there's a lot of changes. There's a lot of confusion each week as to agenda items, process, transparency, answering questions, conforming to the process, roles and responsibilities. And I will say after the last couple of meetings, I'm just going to come out and say, Liza, you are one of the hardest working people for the town of Berkeley Heights, and I thank you. It appears, however, to me, from an outsider's view, that perhaps the administration and the sitting council people have placed a really undue burden on you and their expectations of your role and your responsibilities to this town. A couple of weeks ago, there was a question on the no-knock ordinance, and you started answering something the attorney should have been answering. Not that you aren't knowledgeable and helpful and awesome, but it seemed inappropriate, and a resident actually said, gosh, could the attorney answer the question? Tonight, you clearly took a huge role in putting together that PowerPoint and presenting it, which really should have been owned by either the CFO or council people who are elected, and their sole job is to develop the budget for our town. You were there to do the day-to-day operations, and you're doing a lot of work. Lastly, tonight, you were asked to read a resolution that was adjusted. Reading a resolution either should have been, I think, by the person who brings it forward, one of the council people, or the clerk. And so I watch, and then I hear from the mayor, everyone is working really hard. I am not confident that everyone is seeing the amount of undue burden, responsibility, and breadth of things that you are putting on a township administrator. I have never seen this in the years I've been here. Again, Liza, the fact that you smile and you're so awesome and pleasant about everything is amazing. But I would ask the rest of the council, please, you have professionals in town like your attorney, like your CFO, like your clerk, and each of you is elected. And in the past, elected officials have presented things, have spearheaded things, have done a lot of the work that I see being put on one individual. And I think that is part of the reason we're seeing some of the chaos, some of the changes, some of the problems that other residents have pointed out. And I don't think it's fair to her.
I will
Thank
echo
you.
with that. I think Liza is awesome, and I think she's doing a fantastic job. I think some of the things that have resulted over the last couple of council meetings have been because we do have social and racial injustice, and that has come forward, and we've had to grapple with that and deal with that in a very short period of time. I think it's because we've been dealing with a global pandemic that there is no handbook for, and I got to tell you, closing down Berkeley Heights was a heck of a lot easier than opening it up. And we are dealing with that in addition to regular government. There's a lot going on, as everyone on the Zoom well knows, there's a lot going on in this very small town. So I have to respectfully disagree. And I think Liza handles it flawlessly, not only with a smile, but I think she and our staff, Anna, Eugenia, and the council, everybody that I can see, Craig, everybody that I can see here in these boxes, has been doing a remarkable job in light of all the things that I just listed. Next resident, Liza.
I don't see anyone else who hasn't spoken yet.
I don't think it's a coincidence that when Liza's first day on the job had a Wonder Woman shirt on. I just would like to add that because I think she has indeed truly been a superhero in helping lead this town. And that's all I'm going to add.
You have Toya's hand still up over there, Liza.
Yeah, but the rules that the mayor read at the onset of the meeting is, and the ones that are publicized, is each person gets a 3-minute.
Yeah, Manny, I'll answer that. So I read the Zoom instructions. I've been doing it since we have been Zooming during council meetings. And if we permit somebody to speak, we've got, if that's something that we have to revisit, we can't do it now. We'll have to change the rules going forward. But I appreciate you pointing that out.
Yeah,
okay.
I move to close the citizens hearing.
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call?
Mrs. Brahimai?
Yes.
Mr. Kudo?
Yes.
Mrs. Kingsley?
Yes.
Mr. Maderos?
Yes.
Mrs. Pogue?
Yes.
Mr. Yellen?
Yes.
I move on resolution number 1, approving bill list dated June 23rd, 2020, in the amount of $313,277.07.
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call?
Mrs. Brahimai?
Yes.
Mr. Kudo?
Yes.
Mrs. Kingsley?
Yes.
Mr. Maderos?
Yes.
Mrs. Pogue?
Yes.
Mr. Yellen?
Yes.
I move on resolution number 2, approving submission of a grant application with the New Jersey Department of Transportation for the Walk, Don't Drive to Berkeley Heights Transit Station Phase 2 project.
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call?
Mrs. Brahimai?
Yes.
Mr. Kudo?
Yes.
Mrs. Kingsley?
Yes.
Mr. Maderos?
Yes.
Mrs. Pogue?
Yes.
Mr. Yellen?
Yes.
I move on resolution number 3, approving the submission of a grant application with the New Jersey Department of Transportation for the various streets 2021 Berkeley Heights project.
Second.
And this is Sawmill West College, College and Riceman. Any discussion? Any other discussion? Roll call?
Mrs. Brahimai?
Yes.
Mr. Kudo?
Yes.
Mrs. Kingsley?
Yes.
Mr. Maderos?
Yes.
Mrs. Pogue?
Yes.
Mr. Yellen?
Yes.
I move on resolution number 4, authorizing the establishment of the Mayor's Advisory Committee for Truth, Racial Healing, and Transformation of Berkeley Heights.
Second.
Any discussion?
Yes.
All right, let's go in order. All right.
No, I'll wait. Susan, go ahead. Ladies first.
Go ahead, Susan.
Age before beauty, Manny. No, it's okay.
That works too.
So I want to comment that I actually attended an event held by the Diversity Council, I think it was 2 years ago, and people from Maplewood and South Orange came, and they talked about how they brought diversity in a real way to their town. And they talked about how it takes time and it takes these conversations. So I want to say that, I also agree with Josh about reporting out to maybe the community, but I do think that having people at the meetings could hold back the truth. And people talked about truth, And I think, to me, this word truth means people are able to finally tell the truth about what they're feeling. And I think a lot of us heard that at that march that day. I heard some truths that were very ugly about our town. And it had to be really hard to say that in front of 2,000 people. So to me, that's the truth part of it. I'm not getting philosophical here, but I applaud you, Mayor, for starting something that we really need.
Yeah, and I know you're going to think I'm being difficult, and I apologize to the audience if some of these questions are repetitive. And I don't want to negate all the hard work you've done. I know this resolution appeared at the last minute in front of me, and 2 weeks ago also, but I have some questions on it.
Okay.
Reading through it, you said it was written based on the Kellogg model.
Well, now it's not. That was all
No,
removed.
Well, that truth phrase is still in the Kellogg model. That's one of their phrases that they use in the Kellogg model. So I'm assuming that the draft, and I know you said it could still be revised. Did the Board of Ed, were they involved with this? Because you said these are the stakeholders, and your concerns are getting the stakeholders all involved. And you
Sure.
mentioned the Board of Ed. So the Board of Ed gave input to this last revision.
We removed the Kellogg Foundation per the request of the Diversity Council. Prior to that, we did have a Zoom, the chief and I, last Monday, maybe?
How about the Board of Ed? Because you mentioned them, and the Kellogg Foundation has been in existence since 2010. It seems like there's a major push to get this thing through. And I don't want the appearance for Berkeley Heights that we're against racial diversity. Of anything, when Peter Bavasso read his resolution 3 years ago, it was an important moment for Berkeley Heights. I think Berkeley Heights is a welcoming and loving community that all people should aspire to. But hearing some of the concerns I've heard right now, you said you sent it, was that the only thing the Diversity Council asked on? Was taking that Kellogg Foundation out, or were there other issues? Were they given a copy of this resolution to review before it came out to me?
It was in response to the email that we received from them that you were copied on around 3-ish this afternoon, that they had some concerns with the Kellogg Foundation.
Mm-hmm.
And frankly, it just wasn't important enough to keep that included. I know that they have a great program and a great basis for starting this type of committee. But in my opinion, again, I don't think some of the topics that we need to talk about as a community can wait. And I believe that this resolution is generic enough. And Stephen, thank you for suggesting that we just remove the Kellogg Foundation portion of the resolution. I think it gives us a good foundation to start to have these conversations that need to happen years ago.
Well, there's concerns from several members who've spoken today, and that's from a minority membership in the community, as well as the old-time people there in the community on this resolution. My question, since again I received it at 7 o'clock, 7:15 today, and I don't want to get resolutions being created on the fly during council meetings. I think it sets a really bad precedence. A few resolutions that I've been involved with, we're fighting to change wording and being told, no, we really can't change the wording. But right now, we're changing everything. I really think this resolution should be tabled for another meeting, for the next meeting, unless there's a clear and definitive reason why there's a big push. I think the Diversity Council has done an outstanding job trying to bring in community support. Susan has attended the meeting. I've attended every single meeting before I became a member, from the reading of Henrietta Locke's right on down the line. So I just want to make sure that I haven't heard the answer, which I was questioning. Have they seen this resolution before it came out to me? And if the answer is no, and since I heard one of the members in the community complain, I really would like to have this thing tabled for next meeting.
Okay, thank you, Manager.
Unless there's a clear and underlying reason why it should be going forward, and I haven't heard it yet.
All right, I appreciate your thoughts. Jean, go ahead.
Yeah, I saw the resolution when it was mailed in the agenda packet on Friday, and I spent a lot of time this weekend doing my own homework and researching the Kellogg Foundation and reaching out to Scotch Plains and reaching out to Fanwood, and I tried to do my due diligence on how the resolution was sitting. So finding out at 7:15 that it's a different resolution than I did the work on is troubling, and I'm concerned because in this thing, we cut out 3B, which is one of the key purposes of what this thing is supposed to be, which is to come up with advice on how best to promote the goals. And just because we knocked out Kellogg, we shouldn't be knocking out what this committee is supposed to do. So I feel like these adjustments are too fast. They're not really well thought out, and I fully support the initiative, but I think we all need to just take a deep breath, get this right, let the key stakeholders have their say, and put it back on the agenda when the entire governing body actually has had a chance to do their homework and look at it. Because it is really important that we get it right. And that would be my recommendation.
Okay, I see Stephen first.
Yeah, so as the person who reached out about proposed about making the amendments, and I think I may be the only member of this governing body who previously served on the Diversity Council in a leadership role prior to serving on this governing body. I think I understand as much as anybody that its work matters in this community. Its members have worked hard for years, even on things as basic as having Martin Luther King Day put back in the school calendar, to fighting for years to get that done. So people like Toya, Ayana, Jimmy, Damien, and so forth, this is, they and their voice and the voice of those on the Diversity Council matter. And that voice should and would be part of this advisory committee. But I would strongly encourage my colleagues not to miss the forest for the trees here. This town was one I'm born and raised in. I know our town, and for all of the wonderful things that are in our town, I can also tell you that the vast majority of my classmates from high school moved out a long time ago. And when I talk to my classmates, and over the years, one of the main things that comes up again and again is about the same issues that we are now confronting head on right now in this community. That this was not a town they wanted to come back to, because in part of the issues that we are facing head on tonight and in these recent days in our community. I believe we have a moral obligation to do our part as a town government to take action. It has been almost a month since the march. I have already heard from a number of people just in the 2 weeks since the last meeting who are accusing me and others that we're not actually interested in doing things to help this town on these issues, that we're just full of talk, that we're not actually going to do things to make that moment a real movement. What the mayor has proposed is a critical step forward for us to do things. Is the committee form, I think the important thing to note is the committee form and the committee actions will be determined by the people on the committee. That is how these things ought to work. I don't think any of us realistically can claim that something like this is always going to be handled perfectly, or that there aren't going to be flaws or things that have to be corrected later on. This is uncharted territory. This town has never in an official way sought to tackle a sensitive issue or a circle of issues of this kind in this manner head on. This is not easy territory. And so I fully agree, or fully share the view, that if we end up having to amend this committee's roles or responsibilities later on to reflect things that are being brought up tonight or otherwise, fine, we can do that. But I refuse to let this be delayed and dragged out a day longer, because this town is looking to us to act. And I refuse to delay over quibbles and technicalities or about rhetoric in the whereas sections, because that is really what it is. It is not a statement of action. It is a matter of words that describe the intent. The actual role of the committee will be done by the members of the committee, as I see it, with input from the residents across our community. That is what the mayor has sought to do with this. I believe it is absolutely right. And I do not want to be in favor of delaying this another 2.5 weeks, because by then, who knows what other delays we're going to find. We're going to have more people objecting to more issues. Let us get this started. Let's put this town finally with the right step forward on dealing with matters this critical to our community, who we are as a community, and who we want to be, and who we wish to be. I just do not see the reason for delay on the basis of disagreements over specific language or technicalities of that nature. I'm sorry, I just don't see it.
I'd like to, let me just go.
Wait, Benny, wait, please. Let's let everybody
Okay.
have one turn. Gentiana?
Yes, so great speech, Stephen. I agree with all your points. you know, what you're saying is that you're calling all the rhetorics and people opposing to this and people who have spoken from that diversity council, you're saying that we should dismiss them and the residents and the concerns, you know, about the thing, and then go ahead and create something and rush into something only because now we're required to do something. There is residents who actually have been sending emails about forming a committee, including the TC member, Board of Education before, like John Miguez, who sent an email months ago about, you know, signed by 30 people. You just had Toya Facey, who just actually said that she actually is urging us to wait on this before we actually have more details on how to form the committee, and everybody's heard. We have residents, we're gonna have Board of Education, we're gonna have the police, and you just wanna form this out in a fly when at 7:15, all the changes that were made were actually emailed to all of us while we were in the middle of a meeting. I completely disagree with that. I don't think there is a rush for it. I think we need more forums. I think we need more discussion, and I think we need more residents. We need the police, we need people from the Board of Education, we need parents, we need township members. I personally was not consulted at all about this particular task force. I don't know anything about it until the emails that I actually received, and I don't think that this is right. So I think that we should table this. I think there is more room for discussion, and I'm working on a proposal for this very reason, that the ordinance, all these resolutions that are actually not an emergency, we need to have more forums in between. We need to have more discussion. We need to have more resident involvement. So I think that we should table this resolution for tonight.
Okay, Indiana, Alvaro?
I would say that I think I heard at the start of this meeting, the time is of the essence. We're at an inflection point in this township that was reflected, as Stephen mentioned, in the Black Lives March. I think there's an expectation in this town that we will do something, and for us to sit on our heels to postpone this another time yet again, and not knowing whether or not we're ever going to get to it even then, I disagree with. I agree with Stephen. I think he said that very passionately and articulately. I think he's well-founded, well-grounded in diversity in this township, and I think he's done the due diligence to speak to the right people who have the input and on these changes. So I think we should move forward with it.
And it's fluid. We're saying that it is a fluid, the resolution is a fluid document. As the team meets and they figure things out and you say, oh, well, we need to change this. It is a fluid document. It's not a set in stone resolution.
No, it's,
Wait, one at a time, Manny.
yeah, no, I appreciate it. And again, I'm still going to be sounding as if I'm the difficult person. I agree with Councilman Yellen on certain points on the entire thing. I think, but to do a resolution like this that does not involve the stakeholders, because from what I just heard, the stakeholders have not gotten enough feedback. If I didn't get any feedback until 7:15, I am sure the stakeholders have not been allowed to have feedback. And we did have one of the key people on the downtown, on the diversity council speak up, ask the table. They want this thing to go forward, but they want to have some changes. So these changes, Councilman Yeller, are not minor changes, and they're all part of the people. And if our job as council people is to listen to the people and still vote our conscience, the people have spoken. And the ones that are speaking are people that are members of the DBC. So the question I ask, and I want to correct you on one thing, I don't think you were in the leadership role in the DBC. You were a member there, not a leadership role. Because the DBC has maintained a very nonpartisan group.
Manny,
they've kept it nonpartisan.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
Manny, I was elected treasurer of the Diversity Council at a reorganization meeting that occurred, I believe, in November. I would need to look back at the minutes of meetings that occurred from that time. Certainly, I was an active member and supporter prior to my running successfully for council in 2018.
And I've seen you with all the events. I'll vouch for you gladly.
Yes.
You and I have attended the events.
Yes, indeed. And you have been consistent in that. And I commend you for that.
Okay. So
but I do want to just make a clarifying point. It is precisely because of feedback from the Diversity Council on the Kellogg Foundation portion that they objected to on this, that I propose that we remove that language.
And so how about 3B that Councilwoman Kingsley mentioned?
I have listened to the Diversity Council. I listened to it, and I suppose we take action, as we are doing if we vote for this tonight, to respond to some of the serious concern that they addressed in the email. Here's the concern I have. This has to be an issue that we as a town go forward on. I think it would send a very bad message that on something where we all agree this is something as a step that this town needs to take. To say that to have some of us vote no on the grounds that we need more time to consult residents. I've been talking to residents for the last month all over town, and the vast majority are urging us to take action.
Did you speak to the ones that spoke just now?
I've spoken to members of the Diversity Council. I've spoken to members across this community who are not on the council. People of color, people who are lived here their whole lives, people who just moved here.
And they all seen this resolution that we're going to be voting on that came to me at 7:15. All I'm asking for is to be tabled. Taking action is the correct way to do things.
Yeah.
And I have no problem with taking action. Problem is I'm not going to take action to run straight into a fire when the action is running the other way out of the fire.
We've been tabling these discussions for decades in this community, Manny.
No.
Wait. Please, one at a time.
No, it's our talk.
Jean is trying to raise her hand.
I mean, I think we're not really getting anywhere, but I think Stephen, you're speaking on behalf of the Diversity Council, which wrote every single one of us a letter tonight asking us to table this so they can have proper input and resolution on issues. Toya Facey, who's one of the founding people of the committee, got on tonight and asked us to please pull it and hold off so it could be meaningful and sustainable. And I'm a sitting council person who is, hearing these changes, and there's significant changes to what I spent the weekend researching and studying at 7:15. So none of us are, in my opinion, are saying this is not a resolution we don't support, but I see no reason. There is no gun to any of our heads. And this is an important message we are sending to the community. And it's important that we get it right and we don't rush it. And all I think we need to do is table it so that it can come forward at the next meeting with the full support of the entire governing body and the stakeholders that are going to be a part of this really valuable, important initiative.
So I would like to speak now. So I understand that you all supported. I understand that there were changes that were made. Those changes that were made that you spent the whole weekend researching, Jane, were at the behest of the Diversity Council, and we removed them to make them feel more comfortable. So what I would suggest is if you are not comfortable voting for this tonight, that you abstain. I think that some of the changes that you were looking at, Jean, could certainly be incorporated in the meeting in 2 weeks. But I do think that we have a proverbial gun to our head. I do think that there are issues out there. I get the emails from people with very sensitive things that are going on that we have to sit down as a group, not individuals, not in silos, but everyone in that group needs to sit down next week, roll up our sleeves, and start to talk about this. That mission can be fleshed out as part of that committee. These changes that would make people more comfortable can be amended and made in 2 weeks, but we have got to start the work tonight.
I agree with what you're saying, Mayor, and with all due respect, if you get the emails and everything else, I would appreciate if you share them with the rest of the council. I don't want to find out from this via an email that I get on a Thursday or an email that I get at 7:15 on a task force with all the changes. All I know is that I got that email at 3 o'clock today by the Diversity Council, which is represent the whole council, that they're asking to table this. So if you're getting the email and if we're part of the Township Council, I want to be included. I want to know what's going on. So I'm not asked that within 2 weeks I vote on something, on a resolution. Because I mean, I feel like I'm left in the dark here. That's my, so, and I think that people are left in the dark as well. Residents don't know that. Their residents are hearing that for the first time right now from you.
And I don't see why we couldn't start the dialogue while we're getting this resolution correct and start having people come to the table, since they're going to be appointed by the mayor anyways.
Yeah, I agree with that, 1,000%.
Starting, and we could still get it right.
Because our words are now met by action, by approving this.
Even if the words are wrong, you can still have good action and fix the words. But we're rushing something that we're not.
You're correct. We can approve this resolution tonight, and then later on, fix the wording.
That's trusting the train wreck to be fixed.
Manny, I think that's being very inflammatory, that it's a train wreck. The purpose.
You're right. I apologize for the response.
Has always been to try to do what's best for Berkeley Heights. That was the only intention I had when.
No, I'm sorry if it was taken that way, and I'm sure it was, and I should not have used that phrase, and I heartily apologize. It was the phrase I wanted to use just was not the one, and that one blurted out. I apologize. So to Councilman Yellen and to Mayor Devaney, who worked very hard, I apologize for that phrase. But
No hard
that
feelings.
being said, I still think it should be tabled, and let's correct the wording. So this way the wordings, we have more buy-in from the community people that are mentioning this, because just putting a resolution out doesn't change the world. And I
Now-
think the discussions we're having now are critical to show the residents that, yes, we do care. Yes, we do listen. Yes, we do want to do what you want to do. We have to have the wordings done correctly, because right now just passing a resolution is not going to change things, especially a resolution that was handed us at the last minute. It's, for me, it's a
disagree.
double-edged sword.
I disagree. As a person who is also from a marginalized group, who has been teased, and my girls were teased at GL and came home crying because they are from a marginalized group, we're already too late. We are too late to the table. And Toya, I understand you want it to be sustainable. I believe it can be sustainable because we have someone here who is committed and passionate to making it happen that way. Sorry, I'm crying now. I need a tissue.
Yeah, it's,
And by the way, Stephen, I just want to say one thing.
I think we ought to pause to let Councilman Pogue return.
Okay.
So I think, I think that we all sort of understand each other, and this is one of those times, rare times, and I'm proud that I'm going to say this is one of those rare times that we're going to have to agree to disagree. And I welcome any thoughts that we can amend the resolution for next week, but I really believe that our actions are important and we have to try to move on. So with that, can I ask for a roll call, Madam Clerk?
Mrs. Brahimai?
I think we should table this, so I'm going to abstain from the vote.
Mr. Kudo?
I think it should be tabled also. I think it's too critical, and I've made my piece already, so I'm abstaining also.
Mrs. Kingsley?
I'm going to abstain because, again, I think we need to get the resolution right, but I would call that we start the meetings ahead of the resolution, but I will abstain.
Mr. Medeiros?
Yes.
Mrs. Pogue?
Yes.
Mr. Yellen?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Resolution number 5.
I move on resolution number 5, approving the renewal of the 2020-21 alcoholic beverage Dominio Group, 500 Springfield Avenue.
Second.
Any discussion? So this is Vine Republic, Anna. This is their package license. Is that what I understand?
That's right. He's the first one there's an extension till September 30th, but he submitted all his applications, so that's why he's been on the agenda.
Great. Okay, very good. Roll call?
Mrs. Brahimai?
Yes.
Mr. Kudo?
Yes.
Mrs. Kingsley?
Yes.
Mr. Medeiros?
Yes.
Mrs. Pogue?
Yes.
Mr. Yellen?
Yes.
I move on resolution number 6, authorizing the submission of a treatment work approval application to the New Jersey Department of Environmental Protection, NJDEP, for Toll Brothers, Inc., 110 Roosevelt Avenue, the Hamilton Avenue campus site, block 13, lot 19.
Second.
Any discussion? This is exciting. Roll call.
Mrs. Brahimai?
Yes.
Mr. Kudo?
Yes.
Mrs. Kingsley?
Yes.
Mr. Medeiros?
Yes.
Mrs. Pogue?
Yes.
Mr. Yellen?
Yes.
I move on consent agenda, numbers A and B, 7A, 7B.
Second.
Any discussion? Can I just go to B? What exactly, and I don't know how I overlooked this, what types of events are these?
So we had lengthy conversations about this. And the reason why I had to put it on the agenda is because we didn't know if we're going to have enough time at the next meeting to get this resolution. So they don't know Mount Carmel if they're going to have a small parade. It's really not vetted out yet. So I know I spoke to the chief, I spoke to OEM, and so we put it there, and I just put a specific period of dates to cover, but we don't know the specifics, just so in case it does get approved by everyone else, they could have the fireworks.
Okay, that's very good. I know that I spoke to Tony and OEM, so this clarifies. Okay, very good.
So they,
yes. Any other discussion? Roll call.
Mrs. Brahimai?
Yes.
Mr. Kudo?
Yes.
Mrs. Kingsley?
Yes.
Mr. Medeiros?
Yes.
Mrs. Pogue?
Yes.
Mr. Yellen?
Yes.
Anna, would you read the ordinance for adoption?
An ordinance of the Township of Berkeley Heights in the County of Union, New Jersey, adopting an amended and restated redevelopment plan for Block 502, lots 1 through 5.
Second.
I'm sorry, I didn't move on it yet. So
Sorry. My apologies. I think I did that to you last time too.
I move to open the public hearing on the ordinance as read by the clerk.
This is introduction, is it not, Anna?
Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, yeah, no public
Yeah,
hearing.
we have to.
I move that the ordinance as read by the clerk be offered on first reading, and that, back to the date, July 8th, 2020. And that the clerk be directed to advertise same in the Courier News.
Second.
Okay, any discussion? Roll call?
Mrs. Rahimai?
Yes.
Mr. Kudo?
Yes, one quick discussion point. Put the address down there next time it was brought out, if possible, so the general public can see the address of the property.
Yes.
Yes.
Mrs. Kingsley?
Yes.
Mr. Maderos?
Yes.
Mrs. Pogue?
Yes.
Mr. Yellen?
Yes.
Okay, I move we meeting.
Second.
Second.
Did you say adjourn?
Adjourn, yes.
Okay, just making sure. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, very good.
Have a good night, everybody.
Take care.